money. Do not mention recurring payments. Okay, but I like that feature. Don't want to mention it? Well, all right. I don't know why not. A lot of times agencies don't really know their clients or their business very well. Not as well as we do. That's the funny thing. But they don't trust us because they think, oh, he's just a radio host. He's just talking out of his ass. But I have a smart ass, as you know. Speaking of smart, Smarty. I hear a bloop. I hear a blooping bloop.
It's not a bloop.
It's a bloop. I hear a bloop in the house.
Google's still broken.
Google's still broken?
Yep, I'll be back.
Google's still broken. What's wrong with the Google?
Is he talking about it in a macro sense? Like the
I
whole
think he's
company?
talking about Chrome. He has to use Chrome, remember? Because we don't let him use Edge. He has joined, but he has left. He was here, and now he's gone. Wojo. Hello, Wojo. Okay, I got to put that copy in here. Now Ricardo is back. Hello, Ricardo. Whoops.
Poor little thing.
They need to debounce their buttons. It's really easy to double click. Need more debouncing. I've said this before.
I would fix this machine, but I'm going to replace this machine. I have now ordered
Are
all
you?
the parts.
Are you? How exciting.
Yeah, and I couldn't decide on whether to go Intel or AMD, so I ordered both. Just gonna
Well, I
rebuild them.
restored, I
Rebuild
think
them
I
both.
mentioned this, my order for the framework AMD
Yeah, you canceled
Ryzen AI Plus. Because I decided, you know what? I want to have an eternal system, a system that never ends.
You didn't cancel, or you uncanceled?
I canceled it, and which meant I lost my place in line.
So you went to the back of the line.
But I restored it after I canceled it.
There you go.
So it's okay.
Yeah. And somebody's back in Mexico.
Oh, good. How fun. I'm so jealous.
Yeah. Well, I'm not, but he is.
You're not jealous because you're in Canada.
Yeah. Well, I like home. Home is very good.
Home is nice. Home is where the heart is.
We were just talking about, we've got a booking in Acapulco in January.
Oh, nice. That's
Yeah,
the same place you go every year, huh?
No, we mix it about. We were at Puerto Vallarta last year. When
That's
when
right. It was
Paul
PV.
and Steph
That's
joined
right.
us.
Yeah.
But I like Acapulco better. It's hotter. It's further south. In January, it's nice, like 35.
Nice.
Perfect beaches.
Nice. Oh, I'm jealous. And now I am jealous.
Mm.
I'm really, really jealous.
It's a drippy day today, though.
Well, you get the best of both worlds. You get drips.
We had a good week of sun, and then
You get
the last couple of
drabs.
days it started raining.
Anthony says his Intel chip is probably cooked with that degradation issue.
Boo.
Anthony's Intel chip got cooked? Wow, that's
How
not
do you do
good.
that?
Cooked is what the kids say these days, I think.
Playing too many games. Gotta stop playing Expedition 33.
Yeah.
That's on the top of my to-play list.
Is that a Twit machine? Or his personal machine?
It's personal.
It's just personal.
Yeah, those Dell workstations probably don't have the same. Don't break it. They just keep going and going long beyond their utility. But see, that's what I'm hoping with this AMD. I'm going to put... it got a massive amount of memory. It's 128 gigs of RAM, and because it's the AI chip, it has an NPU, and it has and it can access unified memory, so it can access the RAM. So you get up to 96 gigs of VRAM, and I got I got two 4 terabyte SSDs in there. So
Wow.
I'm gonna put some giant
I decided to
local
just go
models on there. I could put the Llama 70 gigabyte model on, but I'm hoping there'll be even better stuff down the road. So that'll be my local AI / and then I am gonna put a GUI on it. My other Linux box is just CLI, but I'm gonna put a GUI on that one so that I can then terminal into it and make it kind of my main machine. We'll see. Can you boost yourself just a tad, Ricardo?
Boost myself lots if you want.
Well, what do you think, Kavan?
I think I
Can
got
Richard
to wait
talk
for
again?
Paul. I feel
He's a
good.
very softly spoken fellow.
I am. That is not true.
He speaks softly, but he carries a big stick.
Something or other.
Big bottle.
Bottle of whiskey. Yeah.
A big bottle.
Big
I have
old
to start
bottle of
buttoning the top bottle like a top button like a Canadian.
whiskey. There you go.
Hey, you hoser! Look at that. Isn't that better? I think that's better.
There you go.
I like it.
I haven't got my top button done up.
No, I know. I know.
Anyway, I'm at 0 dB on the slider there, Kev. if
Turn
you
up
want
a little bit, but use your show voice.
It's not showtime yet.
Hey!
Jesus, I always think that's a real person.
It is.
Too funny.
Hey! I
It
know
was
he
a real
does that,
person
doesn't he?
Once.
Ha 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 ha. So there was a question yesterday, which I left before I saw, about this thing behind me. It is, in fact, have a microphone on it.
The
and it does
IMSA?
see my voice.
Or the
only reason there's
the,
a lot of percolating is because there's a lot of background noise in here.
right fan noise.
Fan noise, street noise, because I have windows open right above it.
Right.
Wind noise.
I mean, it mostly looks like your voice in Spectral.
Yeah. But you could see that little...
Yeah, you've got an ambient, but then who doesn't have an ambient? Right.
Right. There's room tone. And this...
The
this,
room always
Rode
gets a say.
Gets rid of the room tone. It's funny. The piano book one of the piano books I'm using is pretty old.
What are you playing now?
I'm learning The Entertainer, which is a very
yeah.
good showpiece because it's not that hard, but it
Yeah, it's a ragtime
impresses.
piece. Yeah, it's always
Yeah,
fun.
it impresses.
Catchy.
And I am learning the can.
Mm.
Da, 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 da. That's also kind of impressive.
Yeah.
But then the old book I'm using, which is by a guy named Dennis Agay, has a song that I'm learning called Ancient Chinese Piece.
Oh man.
And it's hysterical because it's like what Westerners think Chinese music sounds like or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Da, da,
okay.
da, 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 ha, ha. It's like Chungking makes Chinese sing American. Hello, Mr. Mexico.
Hello,
Hello,
Paul.
Paul.
Leo.
I think Paul's video is mirrored.
Yep, just looking at that now.
No, yeah. If you were a vampire, you couldn't do that.
Yeah, I was told 2 days ago I was a vampire. That's curious.
Da 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 da. It's fun because it has this prelude of da 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 da.
It's basically a descending scale.
Bum ba 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 ba.
What's happening? What
I'm
are we
just talking about the piano piece I'm learning.
I asked.
You know not
Well,
to
I
do
started
that.
it by talking about this ancient Chinese song.
Yeah.
I wish I could play it for you. It's
Not an ancient Chinese secret.
Currently,
Well-
Paul is too loud. Just
Paul.
Paul.
Also,
turn
you're
it
too
down a little?
low. You're too loud and your head's too low.
The hand.
All these things can be fixed.
Hand.
Hey, everybody.
The hand.
All right, is that better?
Now you can see the bug, though.
There you go.
keep talking, Paul.
You're doing the minion thing here.
Select an app to open this HTTPS link. You want more? Sorry.
Better.
Microphone
Isn't that
array,
app?
Intel Smart Sound, something.
Now, Richard, talk.
I'm talking because I got lots to say. Kevin, this is all your fault. I blame you.
just
Yeah,
just
we all do.
increase by like 1 or 2 dB, Richard.
You want a 1? You want a 1? I got that 1 for you right here.
Hello, you winners and dozers.
There's 1.5. I'm giving
Yeah,
you
we
an
talked
extra.
about this
That's
last
good.
week. I don't understand.
You dowsers, you.
Who doubts
Well, I
us?
noticed AI Leo's been amended to say, hell, time for WW, you dozers. Somebody thought I was saying hosers, like
Not that
Doug and
Canadian.
Bob McKenzie.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone.
This is gonna be
Please check your email.
Please stand
Discord
by.
is the most annoying app on earth.
Discord loves you.
Discord doesn't
Strange
understand that people sometimes travel.
Discord has concerns.
was the login. Yeah.
Greg says we missed the blue screen of death going away for the black screen of unexpected reboot. Did we talk about that last week? So he says he didn't remember it.
So
Steve
many
Gibson
reboots,
did.
So little time.
Steve Gibson mocked it.
Oh, apparently, the OpenAI has closed its deal with Johnny Ives' company.
Yeah.
There you
Oh,
go.
$6 billion in the pocket, Sir Johnny. What? I like David Suzuki, your Canadian environmentalist.
Yes.
He's very good. He said
Also-
there should be no billionaires. He said he said when you get your first 100 million, you should get $100 million and a statue of a dick. And when you get if you get $1 billion, we'll give you even a bigger dick, but no more after that. You got enough.
He's 90 years old, man.
Suzuki
Thus,
is so good, but
instituting
you know
a
what?
phrase you will never hear in real life. Your dick is big enough.
It's big enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Um,
I think we're gonna need Paul to lower it a little bit more because when he gets excited,
When he gets
it goes
feisty?
way high. Yeah.
Do I get excited? I don't know.
You're peeking.
It was like when you said thus. You know,
Thus.
Unfortunately, Suzuki said it's over. There's no more trying to fix climate change. We just all need to kind of prepare for the worst. Start growing your own food, pumping your
Still.
own water.
You can still fix things, but
Well, he says
we are definitely going to deal with
I
some
think he's
issues.
right that we just don't have the political will. We're going. U.S. is going the exact wrong direction, like about face.
There was one thing I know
Yeah,
about
billionaire is a
Americans
policy
they can-
failure. I
They can
agree,
change
Jim.
direction quickly.
But at least, I mean, I think everybody would agree a multi-billionaire is a policy failure. Let him have $1 billion. That's more than enough.
Yeah, I agree.
It's more than you could spend in a lifetime. The interest alone is more than you can spend.
No, that was the joke with J.K. Rowling was the first billionaire ever to leave the billionaire club because she donated so much money.
Good for her.
It lasted 1 year.
Yeah, well,
She was
that's
back to the billionaire club.
and that's part of the problem. Also, is that even if individuals are incredibly generous, they're never going to make up for the loss of government programs because the government has much more money than any individual does. All right.
Talk one more time.
What's that?
Can you talk one more time in highs and lows?
Yep. Microsoft announced a new chapter in its support for education, workplace training, and nonprofit organizations.
Much
Wow,
better.
you're getting a lot of ping out of the room today. Holy man. You want to pull that mic a little closer to you, dude.
Your room tone.
Yeah.
Me?
What is this
I
mic
don't
you're
hear.
using? Is this
Your
a new
Mexico-
mic?
It's the
your
same
Mexico
mic I was-
mic
That's the
sounds-
same mic.
Same
That's
Mexico mic.
Is
It's
it
different.
end addressed or front addressed?
Wait, I think it's front.
Yeah, so tilt that so you're.
Well, it is. I mean, I did.
Okay.
Did it.
Even more. Yeah. Okay.
Well, okay.
A whole lot of room came to visit.
Yeah, it's a little echoey.
Okay. So, well, I mean, I could enable some kind of a.
You should hang blankets up all over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a concrete structure.
Yeah.
Lots of blankets in Mexico. That's a great idea. I love that.
So we have now removed all the stucco from our south wall.
Oh,
Our house has a big gaping wound on the south wall.
it's a look.
And now they're saying, if you really want to waterproof it, we're going to take out all the windows and doors too. It's like, dude, why don't we just tear the house down and start over? How about that? Might be cheaper.
Okay.
Should we do a show?
Sure.
How
About
do you
what?
feel,
I'll
Mr.
talk one
Kevin?
more time now that the microphone's different.
I feel good.
Let's check your room tone, Paul.
I'm very excited.
This site is trying to open Notion. Always allow Notion to open links of this type in the
Yes.
associated app.
Don't you have an app?
I sure do.
So your
Do you
your
want the app?
links are
I
now
decided to
associated
start
with
using the
Notion.
app. It's just really a dedicated web page. It's so stupid. But I keep a tab.
Oh, no, but at least with the get offline support. Oh, wait.
No.
No,
That's why I'm telling you, Obsidian, Paul.
Listen.
I know you
would
tried it.
If I could, I would. I mean, I would do it right now. I would. Okay.
It has HTML export.
No, I know, but it's not clean enough. It's not. There's no, unless this changed in the last like 17 days. There's no perfect clean HTML output. But I would love that.
Oh, I love Obsidian. I've become an Obsidian advocate.
Yeah. No, I completely get it. I really. Yeah. I feel like I would.
Very
do that.
happy. Very happy.
Okay.
I am 124p again today. What is 124p? Are you talking about my frame rate?
Yeah, it just means his machine has decided he doesn't like the resolution on your screen and it dropped it down. You look crispy to me, Leo, like every day.
I think it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
I'm just looking at my
Just seeing if he's peeking.
analyzer. My
Just trying to
spectrum analyzer.
I love it. I love little sparkly lights like that.
I used to have a clock there, but now that I have this GPS clock with the thousandths of a second, which is hysterical,
Yeah.
I don't need a clock there. So I thought, well, I could put the weather there. I could put the Bitcoin value there.
There you go. It's going faster than the thousandths of a second.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
Okie dokie.
I'm ready if you're ready. Let's put a sheet up on the barn and make a show.
That's kind of cool too. The weather.
There you go. Yeah, that is cool. What is that device? Is that just a screen? You're on a different
It's
thing?
called a Divoom,
A Divoom.
and it's a low res screen. It's a 64 by 64 screen, but it has.
good.
Here's the Bitcoin price.
I wonder.
Nice.
It's looking nice, $109,000. Those 7.85 Bitcoin of mine sure are looking pretty tasty right now.
I got to tell. I'll tell you my Bitcoin story someday, but we should start a show.
They're safe in my wallet. That's the good news. Let's see. I can see how many
that's
YouTube
what it is.
subscribers I have.
Boop.
I can see.
Oh, that's not.
I could see how that's you, Divoom, not me. I have to set that to my YouTube account. Actually, it'd be kind of interesting to do that. I wonder how I do.
All right, I'm ordering one. I blame you. It's Prime.
It's pretty cool.
I still blame you.
Okay, search channel. I want the Twitch channel.
I don't have enough stuff. That's the truth.
Yeah, I know. I keep ordering crap. Okay, now I can show my YouTube account
Windows Control T.
with the actual numbers.
Ooh.
79. Is that right? 79,000. Oh, no. There you go. Look at that. Look at that. That's pretty cool. I don't know what that is. Oh, that must be views. That's subscribers, 276,000 subscribers. And then the views is some millions. 79,544,000. All right, let's do a show. I'll be playing with that throughout the show, so keep an eye on my upper right-hand corner.
Okay.
Who knows? It might change to kitty cats. Hello, you winners and you dozers. I didn't want to wake the dozers up. It's time for Windows Weekly. Mr. Paul Thurrott is in Der House. Actually, he's in his house in Mexico
I'm in
City.
their apartment.
In Der Apartmento.
Now I'm all screwed up again. What's going on with me?
No, you look beautiful. What are you talking
look
about?
Oh, I guess
Yeah,
it's
it's
okay. I shrunk the window like a doofus. And
I like the giant hand reaching in.
The hand-
Also with
the
us,
hand is
ladies and
coming.
gentlemen, Richard Campbell, who is in the beautiful Madeira Park, British Columbia.
Well, it's It's not that nice. It's kind of
Rainy.
weathery today. Yeah.
Oh, it's pretty. Yeah, see, that looks pretty. You know,
There's a
on
little bit
our
of blue
shot.
sky showing there. So
Yeah, look at that.
There's been a few squalls through, and there's a bit of cloud layer on Texada, but
That's why everything's so green.
everything's very green right now. It's been a good 24-hour drizzle. So
We're in California. We're at the point where things start to turn brown and dry out. Just getting ready for the wildfire season. If you know.
yeah, no, it's perfect timing.
Do
Yeah.
you know?
We were just getting to brown grass because we do not sprinkle our grass here, and then the rain came.
Sounds like a song. Sounds like a Eurythmics song. All right. Okay. You win. Let's talk about Windows. In fact, let's talk about Patch Tuesday.
Yeah, which actually happened on schedule this week, unlike our Week D update from 2 weeks
You're
ago.
freaking me out. That's weird.
What's wrong?
That's freaking me out. It's
It's too weird to be on
Tuesday.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is we've talked about all this, but keeping track of this stuff is really difficult because it's, when will then be now kind of a problem? So for 24 and 23H2, there are a set of updates. Some are for both, some are only for 24H2. One of them is only for Copilot plus PC. It's hilarious. Windows 10 also got a Patch Tuesday update. I don't usually mention that, but this one has a semi-important change, which we'll get to. So the single Copilot plus PC feature is that Ask Copilot addition to Click to Do, which I can categorically state is borderline useless. So enjoy that.
It'll get better. It's just the beginning.
Okay. I mean,
You
it's
like my optimism? I'm gonna do optimism.
I know. I mean, I
Okay,
appreciate it, but
Pollyanna.
I think we've both been around long enough to know it's not going to get better. But it's a glorified version of copy and paste. So, you engage with Click to Do. You get the shimmery color thing going on. It highlights all the text and graphics you can see on screen. You can select one, and then Ask Copilot will be one of the choices, and then it will just paste that thing into Copilot. So then you're going to run Copilot. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this.
It's all about,
so there's
it's all
that.
about running Copilot. That's what it's about.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to step through what I hate about every one of these new features. This probably be the easiest way to go through this. There's that show smaller taskbar icons option, 24H2 only. I think I made this comment last week, but it does make the icon smaller, but it keeps the taskbar the same size. It's
Nice.
like part of the point of that would be to have a smaller taskbar, but
Look, we're still working on Windows 10 taskbar features, aren't we?
yeah, exactly. I don't have any complaints about this one, but narrator, as I called it in my article for some reason, has a new feature called Screen Curtain, which is basically one of those deals where it will black out the screen while it reads content aloud. So the point of this is you're probably using it because you have a vision impairment, and thus you have no idea perhaps if someone is just staring at your screen and maybe getting vital corporate information from you or something. So this will black out the screen for you, which to me makes tons of sense. On the other end of the spectrum is if you use Windows 11 as an individual, you know that the settings app has like a home screen now. So it's not the system view by default. You have this home view which I don't ever find useful for anything, but there it is. And now if you sign in with a commercial account, so an Enter ID, like a Microsoft Work or School account, you can have that screen too. You lucky dog. So enjoy that.
Now,
I assume
clear, your administrator gets to decide you can have that screen.
and they can customize it, right? So you can have
Right.
company specific information, that's fine. I mean, that's fine. Windows Share keeps getting updated every 3 days, it seems. This is the update where you will see a preview of the web content that you're trying to share, if that's what you're sharing. They already do that for images, and there's a bunch of other stuff for images, but including that 3 compression level thing I was talking about recently, which is actually super useful. So that's good. This one is, we'll put this one in the half-assed category. When Microsoft introduced Windows Backup to Windows 11, I sort of recognized how terrible it was and pointless, but I also saw the potential for the future where maybe they would turn this thing into something useful. And they are, in fact, doing that. And so one of the major changes coming in the future is a PC migration feature for Windows 10 users coming to Windows 11, or in the future, you just buy a new PC, right? You want to migrate from one to the other.
There's something that the phones have had nailed for years.
Yep.
And actually, I think Apple's got this nailed too. If you buy a new Mac, it is just trivial to be back to your config.
I couldn't do this off the top of my head, but Microsoft added this type of capability in Windows 8 and then scaled it back in Windows 10 and then scaled it back further in Windows 11 and then added Windows backup and started rebuilding it. So much like the taskbar, we're kind of getting back to where we were, sort of.
How many years later?
Yeah. So there are two halves to the PC migration story. The half that has shipped in this update is in the Windows backup app. And so you will see a landing page and a pairing page, and it will preview what's coming. You can't do anything with it because the second half is not there yet, and that will be added to Windows setup. So at some point in the future, 25H2 probably, you could bring up your computer, you go through that wizard where the different steps, you sign in with your Microsoft account, probably you do whatever you do. And it will ask you.
It finds a backup you made an hour ago and goes, would you like this? And off you go.
Right. But instead of doing it from the cloud, it will do it over the network from the other PC. Right.
Oh, okay.
And it will probably be more involved than what we have now,
just
because
a tiny bit faster.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I'm willing to give this one a shot. I haven't seen the other half of it, so I can't really say.
I have now ordered the parts for replacing both my workstations, one Intel, one AMD.
Okay.
And I am going to do bare paves for both.
Yeah, nice. And these are going to be desktop computer. Well, obviously, I'm sorry. And what did you get for chips?
An Ultra 9 and a Ryzen 9.
Wow,
I just went top for both.
Yeah.
I mean, I only do this every few years, right? And the main thing that got me moving was I met a couple of young kids at a July 1st barbecue who want to build their own gaming machines out of my old parts. So as soon as I have one for my old parts, I'm like, all right, it's going to be a build party. I'll build the new ones. You get the old parts. We'll build machines together.
It sounds like you're describing organ harvesting, but I assume that's not what you're saying. Yeah.
When you do the build party, let us know. We'll stream it. It'd be fun to stream that.
Is the Ultra 9, is that, do you know if it's Arrow Lake or Lunar Lake, or what is that?
It's Arrow Lake.
It's Arrow Lake. Okay.
Yeah. Which I figured was the more mature of the chips.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be an update to that probably this year. Well, actually, depending on the schedule. I don't know if they screwed around with schedules again. Turns out that's
always true.
Yep. But that will add, the one thing that's missing, not that it's super important, is the Copilot Plus PC capable NPU. Yeah. It's not an Arrow Lake, but I think the next
I got a 5080 in it, so there you go.
You
want some tops? I got your tops right here.
You'll be good. It'll probably play a solitaire pretty well.
It'll be okay.
Yeah, it will be okay. High frame rates.
All Minesweeper, all the time.
Yeah. And then the last one, this is actually really cool. So we talked about this maybe 2-3 weeks ago. Microsoft conforms to the legal requirements of the Digital Markets Act in Europe. It has published a website publicly where they show what it's doing to each of the products. It only has to do things to Windows and LinkedIn for some reason, but and I sort of appreciate the openness of this, but also B, they're not really quibbling about it. They're like, yep, now we get it. We're just doing it, just like Apple's doing. They're very similar. So I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, a month ago, maybe they announced some further changes because there were some things they were doing that were still not compliant with the DMA. Most of them related to the web browser. And what it basically amounts to is you'll be able to, I think you today can already do this, maybe uninstall Edge if you're in the EU or European Economic Area, but also changes to how default apps work. So default browser in particular, it actually gives you everything, not just part of it. And things like that. So this is actually pretty useful. And last week I had an app pick or somewhere in there, something about WinToys, which is a free utility you can get in the Microsoft Store.
Different from
which
Power
basically,
Toys.
Yeah, yes, yes, but there's probably some overlap. But this is a lot about. It's basically like just surfacing things that are registry changes or policy changes. In just like cohesive.
Power Toys is more utilities.
Yeah,
WinToys is just settings in Windows that Because we don't have enough setting screens in Windows. Like, you
Well,
can't.
I mean, we do have a lot of setting screens, but we also don't have a setting for every setting, if that makes sense. You know, that not every setting is promoted to a UI for some reason, probably purposely in many cases. So this, you know, a lot of it's kind of superfluous, but there are some really neat things about WinToys, and one of them is you can just check a box and say, I want to be DMA compliant, and you reboot, and you can uninstall Edge, you can do all that stuff. So
Nice.
it's actually kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk more about Edge. Sorry.
It's also like a non-hostile way to do this. Although I guess Microsoft is saying, yes, we're going to be compliant, and then they're deciding what compliance looks like, and then making it very easy for users to say, okay, I'm now compliant, whether or not that's actually what the EU wants. But then when does the EU ever make it clear what they want?
Right. Well, they'll complain if it's not what they want, but they won't tell you
what they want. Yeah. Okay. I think I dated
my wife.
that girl once.
So
many years ago.
yeah, exactly.
Tell me what you want, what you really, really want.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a cool update. This is also going out to Windows 10. So if you're using Windows 10 in the EU, if you're using Windows 11, by the time October rolls around, and then for the next 3 years, you'll still be able to have that capability regardless of the OS. So I should have been a little clearer about some of these things. So the Windows share improvements, the PC migration bit, the EU changes for the DMA compliance are across 24, 23, H2, and Windows. Those two versions, and then the EU DMA compliance changes for Windows 10 as well. So across the board, and I would imagine Windows backup will also have to be updated for Windows 10 for it to support the PC migration.
How do you migrate, right?
Yep. There you go. So honestly, in terms of patch
Tuesdays, there weren't going to be any
Tuesdays,
more new versions of Windows. They told us that once.
this is how I know you're actually like a part of the Microsoft community, because you never forget any promise that was made by any random individual from the company, and you just hold it over them for the rest of their lives.
Random an individual, right? I'm pretty sure that was Gabe Old.
No, it was Jerry Nixon. And I'm no offense to Jerry, but he's kind of a random. Like, he's not a C-level decision maker. He's a good guy. I mean, I'm not dumping on him. I mean, but yeah, I sure. I mean, Mac OS, or what it was. Yeah, Mac OS 10 was the last version of Mac OS, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now that Apple's not doing it, neither are we. So that's how our world works. We are bitter people. That's going to come up later too. Actually, there's a lot of recurring themes here. Now that I think of it. So anyway, in terms of like Patch Tuesday updates, this has been a big year.
Yeah,
this is actually one of the smaller ones.
It's
so
July.
Nice. Catch your breath.
I hope they're taking. I hope that everything slows down in July. They actually do take some holidays and things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still amused. Like, for example, this computer is 24H2. Obviously, it's not on like the Insider preview or anything. It's up to date. I do have preview updates installing, but Patch Tuesday just occurred, so that is the latest update. And it has that new start menu, right, with the grouping at the bottom where you can kind of looks like that Apple iPhone screen or whatever by default with the category view. But it doesn't have the thing on the side, like that weird little cancerous phone link growth thing on the side. Mostly because I just brought it up, and I'll probably add it later. But I had, when I came here, I have 3 computers here. Yeah. And I brought, I don't even want to say this out loud. I brought 4-ish computers here.
As you do.
Well, I'm reviewing laptops and stuff. And
it's always a question of what you leave behind, not what you bring.
Yeah. So the 3 that I left behind have been sitting here in a crate for 2 months. And it is kind of amazing to me. You can kind of rail against Microsoft for all the updates they're giving to Windows 11, which I do, and for good reason. The counterpoint to that would be, well, yeah, but they've really streamlined it. So we have cumulative updates now. We also have mostly only for businesses now, cumulative updates where only 4 times a year do you actually have to reboot after that, right? That's good, And yeah, good point. Let me tell you something. You leave a computer for a month or 2.
Yeah.
You're looking at 2 hours to update this thing. And
those 4 machines, you got to pull them all out, power them all up, and then go for lunch.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, so you can bring
clicking?
lunch there. You actually have to babysit them.
Yeah.
And this is part of the problem. So this is how I spend my time. So I'm ridiculous. But I lay them out of the bed.
I finally know where the rage comes from. It all makes sense now.
I have 4 screens. There's one I can work on, and then the other 3 I'm going to update. They have been sitting in a crate, like I said. They're all x64 computers, so they're not going to be happy about being woken up. So
Yeah.
they have their batteries have either completely or partially drained in that time, depending on the computer. When you plug in the when you typically, like with the laptop I'm using now, if you plug in power to it, there'll be a little light on the side that goes orange to indicate that it's charging.
Right.
These computers, the light goes white.
Yeah.
And white is a bad color. White means we're not ready.
Sad.
And
battery.
we are not turning on. So even though you are powering the device, you have to wait. And if you try not to wait, it will complain. It will do little blinky lights on the keyboard. It will do everything but power on the computer.
To actually do what you want to do.
Yep. So you give it a minute. It's fine. You boot up. It takes a while. It's a boot. We're not coming back from sleep here. These things are coming back from the dead. Yeah. Every single one of them was configured with Windows Hello facial recognition. Every single one of them failed to do that. And I had to type in my PIN. Okay, fine. 2 of them, OneDrive has a problem. OneDrive is out of date or something. I have to sign into that again, whatever. Okay. So I go to Windows Update. 2 of the 3, there were so many updates that went off the bottom of the page, like past the bottom of the screen, right? Because there's a lot of driver updates too, right?
Yeah.
And firmware updates and all that kind of stuff. And look, if you do this all the time like I do, you know you have to, from Windows Update, go into, like, I think it's advanced settings, optional updates. And optional updates are also driver updates and firmware updates and some other things, but those are the typical updates you see in there.
And do you uncheck all the software related stuff and let the hardware run first?
No, you know what? I just
let it figure it out.
Yeah, it's okay. You can do this. You'll reboot and do things. I don't care. So I check all those. One of the laptops, there was only 1 update. The other 2 had 7 or 8. It's like, seriously. And because these are Windows laptops, you'll see redundant recurrences of the same things in there too with drivers. I don't know why it does that. Whatever. All right. So they're all going. They're all downloading. The cumulative update, the most recent cumulative update, takes forever. I have no idea why. But they all take a long time because they have all these other updates, right? And then the firmware ones, which of course they want to reboot and install that. And you have to look, it will do it while it's asleep. I don't have to have the screens on, but I leave this, I'm sitting there doing, like I'm moving the trackpads around. Like I want to keep them alive so I can see where they are. So I'm working on this other laptop, but I'm looking at these screens. That took an hour. It took an hour. And they reboot and turn, about the same time. They all do this offline thing. They're installing not just those offline parts of the cumulative updates, but also firmware updates. Every single one of them, or all 3 of them, had a firmware update. And then you go back and you do it again because you're not done. You're not done. There's more. So actually, in one case, there was no more in Windows Update, but the other ones, there was more. Got those done, whatever. But now you go to the store. Same thing. Go down to library, I think, or downloads, whatever it's called, and check for updates, and then it's like, takes a lot. It just sits there. It's like, it doesn't do anything. And then all of a sudden it's like, I didn't even know I had that many apps. That takes a long time.
Yeah.
The store app itself has to restart because it's updating, right? So, all right, that takes whatever, half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever it takes. And then you're done, right? No, you're not done. The next thing you have to do is open the terminal window and with administrative privileges and use Winget to check for upgrades because there are more updates. And there are a lot more updates, man. There's like 9 to 12 more updates. And I always do that. It's like -- all -- silent because I don't want I want it just to happen. I don't want to do UAC prompts and blah, 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 whatever. I guess the point of this story is I go away for 2 months and it takes me about 2.5, maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes to just take computers that are just sitting there and make them usable again. You know what I mean?
But this is Paul space. Only the Pauls have this issue.
I'm going to go on a limb and suggest a lot of people listening to this are nodding their heads and are like, yeah, no, I do exactly that same thing.
It happens.
They
to
may
me
not be gone for 2
occasionally.
months. It's how I spend time.
But
It's
you
fun.
also have another machine with you that is up to date so that you could just stare at those ones and be amused by them while still doing something.
Yes. No, I got writing done during this. I didn't. This wasn't what I did. It was what I, did on the side or whatever, however you want to describe that. But, yeah. So I feel like this should be a little more seamless, but I don't know. I
Most
guess
people
maybe it
only
would be.
have
I guess if
one
you just
seam.
left it alone, you know, it would do it eventually. But
I mean, you definitely have the seams cubed there, right? Like you see a lot more seams than most.
yeah, but this also helps me see that thing that I described up front, which is that I updated these 3 machines. They all came back. They all eventually were updated. And I opened the start. You know, I'm doing whatever I'm doing on each of them, but only one of them has the new start menu.
Huh.
Yeah.
And
then when you're done, turns out you're not done.
yeah, like I'm not going to look, there are ways to get everything immediately, Vive tool or whatever, but I'm not going to do that. But it just blows my mind, like how much this is and how little attention this gets, that, they're so proud of all this technology and their ability to update this thing. They never asked why they should or whatever the phrase,
Dude, you got to talk to sysadmins when they're like, well, I got 600 workstations to update.
Oh,
yep.
God.
So, yeah, there's a part of me that understands the user point of view where it's like, IT is the blocker. They say no to everything. But then I see stuff like this and I'm like, yeah, there's a reason they're saying no.
Andy, in our YouTube chat once, it says most of this can occur in the background, right? I mean, can you use the computer?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So
of course you can.
Sometimes,
it just kind of trickles
some
in.
things, maybe.
Yep.
Well,
yeah,
sometimes you have to
yeah,
reboot.
well, yeah, but the part of what I do is I'm working on the book. I'm working on stuff for like the hands-on Windows videos, whatever. Keeping these machines up to date is actually important for what I do, but it's also kind of a known quantity when it comes to it rebooting or changing things or whatever. Like I want these things in the same state. And the problem with Windows is that 2 Windows computers will never be in the same state, even if they are on the same version and updated equivalently, which is, I guess, half the point here, which is why when I, in the old days, I could write a book or an article and say, if you click this, this will happen. And now I have to say things like this. If you click this, you may see this. Or
just
you may
put
see
weasel
this.
words. Could happen, maybe not.
Yeah, we'll see,
Someday. Is this because
what-
they're doing kind of A/B testing, or
Yeah, A/B testing, it sounds like it's some kind of a scientific or mathematical process, but what they're doing is controlled feature release, which is random.
and see who hollers?
Yeah, that's all it is. And there's no switch. You can't, as a power user, say, just give it to me now. All of it. Just give me what you
I will
said
take
is
your
in the
feature
update.
releases.
I think you should get a
anytime.
T-shirt that says "Give it to me now" and see.
Give it to me. That also sounds like a song. Give it to me. Yes. It is. It's an Offspring song. Anyway,
here it is. Come and get it.
I guess that long description was simply how I just trying to describe how I spent my, Tuesday afternoon, I guess,
Well, it's
after
good. We've
flying
got
here.
through the first line of the rundown, and I think that's pretty good for the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
At this rate, we'll be here till tomorrow.
It's not true.
No. Let's
We'll
take
have
a
more
little
updates.
break, though, before we get to the rest of the
Yes.
Windows.
fine new features.
Mm-hmm.
All are coming your way on a big Windows update
Eventually.
someday. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe.
Depending which group you're in.
Yep.
The weasel words are always good. You might have this. You might
Yeah.
not.
This could happen.
This could
Is
happen.
is it blue? No, then you don't have it. Yeah. Like
Yeah. They should
it's like
do that. You
diagnosing
should have,
yourself
like,
with AI. Like, I
a
have
little a bug in
black
the
spot
lower
on my
right
arm.
hand part of the screen that shows you which A/B comparison you're in or something.
Nobody at Microsoft wants you to know what particular
Right.
ring of hell
What
you're in.
version?
You're just,
You're in the seventh circle of hell, my friend.
I knew it. It was
Balls
that
in
guy
the
with the
third
goat
circle.
bottom that tipped me off. No, I don't know. It's
There was
Nobody asked the guinea pigs their opinion.
That's true. You wouldn't. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a guinea pig, right?
right.
Yeah. There was a funny meme I saw, it wasn't fair. I'll show you. It had Richard Stallman with his head, the open source guy, buried in his hands. And it says, "The feels when you find out that the start menu in Windows 11 is literally a React Native application that causes a spike in CPU usage every time you press the start button."
Yeah.
Except
But
that's not really true. There's a React Native component, apparently,
Yeah.
The recommendation thing, which every sensible person turns off.
It's definitely way better performance to load a component like an out of what do you call it? An out of process, extension or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
no, that sounds great. I fired that thing up. You know,
Sorry, we're waiting till Bing responds. Hold on.
It's like, why
Please
am
stand
I
by.
seeing that Mac beach ball in Windows? It's like, hold on, it's loading a web component.
It'll be there in a moment.
Yeah.
All your files are right where you left them. Don't worry. Our show today, anyway, you're listening to Windows and Weekly, and we're so glad you're here with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. Our show today brought to you by 1Password. I know you know the name, but 1Password has a nice new feature. They call it Extended Access Management. I think you want to hear about, especially in enterprise. Over half of IT professionals say their biggest challenge in IT, securing SaaS apps. See, there's a growing problem with SaaS sprawl, and that, I think a lot of this is contributed by AI, right? And then there's this shadow IT issue because users, like to do their own thing. And it's not hard to see why this is a problem for IT pros. But there's some good news. Trellica, by 1Password, can discover and secure access to all your apps, whether they're managed or not. This is a new thing. It's really cool. Trellica, Trelica, by 1Password. It inventories every app in use at your company. Just goes out, looks at them all. And then pre-populated app profiles, which of course you can modify if you want, but they're ready to go. Assess the SaaS risks of each and every app, letting you manage access, optimize spend, enforce security best practices across every app your employees use, even the shadow IT apps. Yeah, with Trellica by 1Password, you can manage shadow IT, and there's some nice side effects. It makes it very easy to securely onboard and offboard employees, and of course, meet your compliance goals, which is probably job 2 after securing the SaaS apps. Trellica by 1Password provides a complete solution for SaaS access governance. And it's just one of the ways that extended access management helps teams strengthen compliance and security. 1Password's award-winning password manager. I know you know about that. It's trusted by millions of users, over 150,000 businesses from IBM to Slack. And now 1Password is securing more than just passwords with 1Password Extended Access Management. And of course, 1Password is ISO 27001 certified. They have regular third-party audits and the industry's largest bug bounty. 1Password exceeds the standards set by various authorities. It's a leader in security. So take the first step to better security for your team by securing credentials and protecting every application, even unmanaged shadow IT. Learn more at 1password.com/Windows Weekly. That's 1password.com/Windows Weekly. It's all lowercase. Make sure you get that Windows Weekly in there so they know you heard it right here. 1password.com/Windows Weekly, all lowercase. We thank them so much for their support of the show. So let's talk about what, after all of this churning and burning, you have accomplished. Oh, you're muted. That's one thing. You got your mic turned off.
Yep, I always do that.
Well
Sorry.
done.
I'm working on about 3 hours of sleep here. Sorry.
Oh, I don't blame you. I know how you feel.
Brutal.
Did you just fly in today?
Yesterday, but so I wish I haven't posted this anywhere yet, so I can't show this to you. But you may recall 2 or 3 years ago, we were here in July, and we were awoken at 2:00 in the morning by what sounded like an invasion force.
I remember
marching down the
this.
street,
The
right?
band,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the parade, yeah.
So I made a video of that, and then we had neighbors move in across the way, and those guys were here last July, and we were not. And I told him the story, and he texted us. You're not going to believe it. It's 3:00 in the morning. This exactly, and he had a video just like I did. And I'm like, yep. And
every
so
year,
yep.
I guess.
So this morning I woke up originally at like 3:30, but I held out until like 4:15. So
that's the worst. You'll lie there staring at the ceiling.
Yep,
going,
it's the worst. So I finally I was like, screw it. I have so much stuff I gotta unpack and get ready, whatever. So I'm sitting here and I heard what sounded like one of those kind of like Dukes of Hazzard style comical car horns. It was like, somewhere out in the world. And I'm like, yep. And I'm like, it's 4:00 in the freaking morning. Are you kidding me? But then I was like, wait a minute. I was like, that's the parade. It's coming.
Here it
so
comes.
I ran out on my.
Here it comes.
I ran out my balcony, and I could hear it. It was gonna come down the street the way it had come before. I couldn't see it, but I just started recording on my phone, and I got the beginning of it. And as I'm recording it, my neighbor comes out all like a silhouette because it's still like dark, awoken by this cacophony.
Oh my God.
And he's like standing
the
there, and you can see he's regarding this with the same mix of confusion and yet familiarity. And then he turns around, and I'm like, good morning. He's like, what's going on? And I'm like,
welcome
so
to
every year, I guess they
Mexico.
do this. I guess it gets a little later every year, but yeah,
It's the new
time,
cadets marching down the street.
It's clearly, yes, it is some kind of cadet thing. And it's the supposition before it was police related, and that it could be police cadets or something.
Yeah.
It looks like a military kind of a parade, but
it's like a
but
graduation.
yeah, same thing again. Like it's stretched from either end of the horizon. You know, my wife, of course, was woken up by this, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I knew there was nothing I could do to prevent her from hearing. Like, there's no amount of things to close. Like, she was gonna hear it. It's like the loudest. I'll put the video up later, but it was insane.
And the trumpets always sound like they're a little bit cracked, like a little
just
flat.
like a little, everything here is a little out of tune. Like they have those organ grinder guys.
Yeah.
That, these were a gift from Germany in the 1930s or something.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's interesting.
They've never been tuned ever since I got them. So I'm not joking. No one knows how to fix these things.
100 years old.
And then they're like, could you give me some money? We're like, yeah, fix the friggin' organ. You're like,
I think it's charming myself, but
you do,
I could see in the middle of the night it might
when
not
they're out
be.
in front of my apartment, I can tell you they're not charming.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's God, it's the worst. Anyway, I love this place. And I have no idea what we're talking about. Okay, so just that I'm exhausted. Yeah, so what did I accomplish was the question, and the answer is literally nothing. But but the computers are up to date. So I do move between them and work on them, and I'll be using them for book and article stuff. So
nice.
And then, it's important for me to know which one of them has the new start menu, actually, because that's something I need, for pictures and whatever. So I only have that on, I think if I have 7 or 8, I bet that might be the only one that has that start menu right now. It's crazy. It's certainly the only one of those 3. Okay. Apparently me owning a lot of computers has helped Windows 11 because one thing changed this past month was pretty important, which is that usage of Windows 11, according to StatCounter, surpassed that of Windows 10 for the first time. So
we're number one.
I guess I'll do it for your direction. Windows 10 usage, right? It's going like this. Windows 11 usage is going like this. And I finally did the little cross thing there. So I would say uptick or whatever growth, I guess, in Windows 11 usage has actually gone pretty steadily this year. Like it's gone up a lot. Where before it was kind of like, not really. And then this year, suddenly it's finally happening. I'm probably more cynical than most, but I can be surprised by some people. And someone somewhere in social media thing was like, well, that only happened because Windows 10 end of life, and it's like, yeah, every version of Windows, it's end of life. Like at some point, you have to just admit they're shipping 300 million computers with this thing on it every year or whatever the number is. And it's going to be used by people. So,
but
okay. Yeah. So whatever the number is, it's still hundreds of millions, and it's going to happen eventually. So I don't think this is a
100 million here, 100 million there.
It adds up. Yeah. After a while.
I know that there are still people that like Windows 10 or even prefer it or whatever. To me, it looks so antiquated.
Right in front.
Really,
of you
it looks
now.
antiquated. Wow.
Right now.
It's that square, flat Windows Phone style UI that I just don't think has aged well. I don't know.
Making me feel like I'm clinging to the past. I get it.
No, you are, but it's in a way we all are, right? I mean, that's kind of. I mean, we all are, right? I mean, to some degree, in some area. I mean, it's fine. I mean, for me, I don't know. I actually. And maybe I'm rare, I don't know, but I do like Windows 11. I do prefer it to Windows 10, but I don't know. Nobody's perfect, Richard, is my point. So yeah, I mean, whatever, this was going to happen. So it happened. There you go. And it's not even 4 years. I mean, I didn't look this up. I don't know how long it took previous versions to do this kind of thing, but the Windows 10 numbers were skewed by the fact that Windows 8 was such a steaming pile of whatever that nobody wanted it, and everyone was ready to embrace something that would give them that kind of Windows 7 experience and be relatively clean and just work and actually work like a computer and not like a tablet. So, that one, I bet the uptick on that one was very fast, but that's an outlier. So
This is something that's, I think, fairly confined fairly uniquely to Microsoft, right? I mean, Apple, almost everybody gets the new operating system. Chrome is forced.
This is a problem with Android too, right? Like, so
that's true. Android
part of the Android, and it's just because of the way it's distributed. The device makers don't like to think about a thing they sold last year or 2 years ago. They don't, they just want to move on to the next one. And like to them, it's like you get this thing, maybe you get a version upgrade, but you get the feature or what do you call it? Security updates, obviously app updates, but like that's what goes with that. Don't worry about it. That kind of mentality. But I don't know. I look, Windows 11 was, despite the artificial limitations, was broadly compatible with PCs that were, for the most part, able to run it well. And then by the time you get to 2025, it's like I don't even understand the argument of I have a 6th gen Intel Core processor with 4 gigabytes of RAM or whatever it is, and I should be able to run Windows 11. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, no, maybe move on. So anyway, we're moving on.
It's happening.
Yeah, it's finally happening. I bet the big holdup here was actually the enterprise, honestly. I'm sure they viewed this with great suspicion.
Yeah, they still do.
Yeah, but they should.
They're not wrong, but they're also, can't buy 10 on machines anymore, so they buy it with 11. So a lot of migration is just new hardware. Yeah. And the rest are now.
That's fine. It just happens on its own schedule. And it's fine. Look, the compatibility thing is pretty much the same across the board. Obviously, anyone who is watching the show has some pet peeve feature in Windows 10 that they don't get in 11, especially like the taskbar at the top. Apparently, all 3 people that do that are watching the show and are really upset about Windows 11. But, this is the old, you don't upgrade until it's SP1 back in the day or whatever, right? Yep. This OS came in hot and fast and unready.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, I would argue, maybe even a year ago that I would say, okay, like across the board, it's kind of where it needs to be. And it's kind of cheap to say years later, like this is what they should have shipped in the beginning. It's like, yeah. But
yeah, first version of XP wasn't great either,
Right. That's right. Yep. I always tell a story, like XP became so beloved. Yeah. No one wanted to give it up. When that thing launched, nobody wanted it. Nobody.
No.
Like
it was Windows 2000 with the Fisher-Price interface.
Yep,
right?
Exactly. And that's exactly the way I described it. I later met the person responsible for that. He was very upset with me. Mm-hmm. I also called it a sea of blues and greens,
Nice. But by Service Pack 4, and they gotten over the SP2 stuff and so forth. Like that's the thing everybody remembers. It had USB support.
Yeah, everything worked. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They had good security, especially on Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. Firewall enabled all the time. They had all the protections for web browsing, et cetera. Like, yeah. I mean, when they shipped that thing, Jim also went on vacation, got a phone call. Yeah, you might want to come back. We have a small problem. Turns out UPnP is super buggy and is being exploited right now.
And I put it in every Xbox. So just,
I had a preview of that when at the launch event. I was in New York, when they launched Windows XP. And you bring up a laptop. But this was the first one that had integrated Wi-Fi capabilities. And with the story about, 2 profiles. Well, if you have 2, why can't you have 3, 5, whatever? And he goes, no, that's impossible. I opened a laptop at the event, look for all the Wi-Fi networks, and there were 100 of them because Microsoft had Wi-Fi networks everywhere for the stuff they were doing. But because it was Wi-Fi like 1.0 or whatever it was called, there were no passwords for anything. It was all open. Mm-hmm. So I could get on any Wi-Fi network I wanted. And I did. I took a picture of it. I browsed through the Microsoft machines that were on the network, and you could browse through the parts of their file systems they were sharing, which they didn't know they were sharing because Windows, again, not always in the most secure default configuration. And you could copy files from their computers to yours.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I noticed that at the launch. I was like, this doesn't seem safe, you know. But anyway, we got it there.
I remember when cable modems first came in at my neighborhood, and it was basically an open network across the board.
So, exactly. I had that exact experience. Yep.
Yeah, made a text file explaining how to secure your machine, just dropped it on people's desktops.
What you just said was exactly my experience. It was like my network neighborhood or whatever at the time. This was in Phoenix in probably 95, 94, somewhere in there. Well, 95, I guess 95 probably. And my friend Brian and I would we could print to each other's printers because they were shared on the network. Yeah. So I would wake up in the morning to some like bitmapped porn photo, you know, like on my printer, and it's like, thanks, man. That's exactly what I wanted to waste my ink on. But yeah, that was I mean, it took us a while to solve these problems, but they were also self-inflicted.
And they shipped. That's the amazing part. They shipped.
Yeah. Yep. Well,
I remember the big shift in XP2 was that they turned on that firewall. That was a big deal, right?
Yeah, that was the trustworthy computing thing. It was literally because of what had happened with XP. They halted development of new features and new, OSs, whatever. Put a bunch of Longhorn guys back on XP and we're like, fix this,
Yeah.
And
arguably part of Longhorn's problem was that most of the senior guys were buried in SP2 for 2 years.
Right. That's right.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. No, they did right by it in the sense that they gave it away as a service pack.
Yeah, right.
They really did significantly improve the security of the system. They learned a lot from Windows Server 2003. They had done this work before for that. And this was the thing that led to the first 64-bit edition, remember, of Windows, which was XP, like XP, whatever they called it, 64-bit.
XP64.
Yeah, essentially server, with the desktop stuff turned on.
I ran it.
Yeah.
I was that guy.
Why not?
Well, because a lot of stuff wouldn't run on that machine.
Yes.
It got a delicious 15 minutes of battery life. It was great.
We've come a long way. It's so easy to forget how bad it was not so long ago.
I know. It's so easy to be kind of cynical about it, but it's like, I think we actively try to block it out a little bit,
Well, Windows used to blue screen all the time. I mean, you don't get many blue screen. Hardly. I haven't seen a blue screen in ages.
Blue screens these days are hardware failures.
Right.
Almost, universally. I mean, 100%. The greatest, we sometimes reference that Delphi book, but when I was doing Delphi stuff in the mid 90s or whenever that was, the greatest thing I ever did was get NT4 going because the apps I would write could easily blue screen whatever 9X I was running at the time. I could not crash NT with that thing. And okay.
And you really tried.
Oh yeah. I was like, this is good. This is good.
Yeah.
That was a big step. That was a big part of it, obviously.
Well, it's simple. They had memory protection all of a sudden. You couldn't access Ring 0. You had to work in the user space, right?
Ask CrowdSpace about accessing Ring 0. But for the most part. I couldn't. Yeah.
One of the pushes for Vista was trying to drive the video drivers to Ring 3 and ultimately had to back off on it because it just was crippling everything. And then they had driver quality problems in Ring 0 with all new driver model. And another thing that went wrong.
Well, we were talking about this yesterday on Security Now. Steve Gibson was reminiscing about when Microsoft, for performance reasons, decided to put GDI into Ring 0.
I was just going to say that. So the dual-edged sword of NT was it ran so slow on existing hardware compared to 9X or whatever, or 3X, that they had to do that. And then the second little, not fatal blow, but the second big problem they did was when they did IIS, and they had like something called the NT option pack. Yeah. They put Internet Explorer in there and they made it the shell. Yeah. And I'm not, this is unfair, but it's also fair. The children who were working on IE were in no way the seasoned engineers who were working on NT, and allowing that nonsense into the server, the file system, into the deepest parts of the kernel, et cetera, was a huge mistake. And it took them a long time to dig out from that one. Yeah. Look, they got it right eventually, but just getting NT into shape for consumers and individuals was honestly,
it was hard.
Huge
job one. It was a big deal. Yeah, big deal. Okay.
And in hindsight, somewhat understandable that the first versions of XP would be a little raggedy. but eventually it got good. And then Windows 7 came out, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. No, I mean,
walked right by Vista there, just like that. Just
what was that again? Vista?
right.
Actually, I liked
Vista
NT
was-
3.5. I understand why you started using that. That was
yeah.
Yeah.
that was nice.
The most solid Windows machine I ever ran was a 351 machine running
right.
Sci-based SQL
Daytona,
server.
I think was that
To
one.
this day.
Yeah.
No
yeah,
GUI
yeah.
on it at all, and that thing was bomb proof. It just went day after
Yep.
day.
Yep.
Nostalgia.
But now we have a one start menu on one computer, and we have others nonsense on this other. Trying to drum up excitement here, but it's like,
well, in a way, it makes sense. It's all now about the presentation layer, right? That's where all the stuff's changing.
yeah.
Because we got the guts pretty well down. Yeah or no?
Well, maybe no, right? I mean, honestly, there have been important security improvements. I mean, I can't say in every Windows version per se, but honestly, probably. I mean,
Okay. All
yeah.
right.
I mean, yeah. I guess it's there's always
when's
a new,
has the driver model changed?
No, it's
yeah,
just
many times, yeah.
Yeah, but not
I mean-
for a while, right?
Well,
Aren't we
no.
s-
See, there are actually big changes coming to drivers or over the past year or so, and then into the future, right? So Microsoft is taking over the printer driver stuff, right? They're kind of taking
that's
that
the main
away.
things happening.
Good.
Just,
That's the big one. But there's there's always another threat. That's the thing. So you can. I always think of this as like the TSA mentality, like, oh, they did something bad. Let's like overdo it and protect against that. It's like, yeah, the guys doing that have moved on to the next thing, and they're in security. There's always a next thing. So
Speaking of which, TSA has announced that you no longer have to take off your shoes.
yeah, take that, shoe bomber, Rich. What was that guy's name? Richard.
That guy tried to light his shoe.
I don't know why I know
fire.
that. Yeah.
is that a?
He looked
12
like
years later,
he looked like a real Mensa kind of rocket scientist type.
A smart guy would use electric igniter. Why do you have a
a shoe
really?
lighter.
A
He's
fuse?
like, I picked the one that had no fluid in it, and now it won't start. Guy next to him is like, what are you doing?
dude?
Can you just read a magazine or something like a normal person?
Stuart, this guy's trying to light his shoes on fire.
Yeah. So because of this imbecile, we've been taking off our shoes like
For
jerks
years.
for the past 15 years or
yeah,
something.
a long
or more.
time.
It's unbelievable.
So you have to have a real ID though. 'Cause
Right.
if you have which is hysterical. No, I have a fake ID. Okay, well you better take off your shoes.
Well, you better have two of them then. Okay.
Okay.
Two fake IDs is okay. Is that yeah. I don't know. Anyway, our world is insane. What can I say? No. Oddly, there's not a lot going on in the insider thing. There was a single canary build, unless something's happening as we speak. By the way, that could be happening actually. No new features, just some bug fixes. Not really.
Wait a minute. I gotta show you this. On the FBI website, there's a historical
the
picture
shoes.
of Richard Reed's shoes.
Oh.
There you go.
Is one of them
it's a little
slightly
piece of
singed?
America
Is that what
history.
that is? On the right side, is there like a hole in it? Because
Yeah. Yeah, where the
he
explosives
actually melted
went.
part of it.
Yeah.
Oh, brother.
Tried to detonate.
Listen, I blame this guy for every sockless, sandal-wearing idiot taking their sandals off and putting their feet up on the wall of the plane.
It's their
Come on,
fault.
man.
It's his fault.
You got to wear shoes and socks. Just do it.
Oh
It's
my
not good.
God.
Guy's wearing a muumuu. He's got nothing on his feet. What's happening? What's his
Hare
name? Richard. What was his
Krishna.
last name?
Reed.
What, Richard Reed.
Richard
yeah.
Reed.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
it? Sound familiar?
It's been
Got
20
3 life terms plus 110 years.
Yeah.
24 years.
Yeah. We've been taking off our shoes.
Yeah.
And now 24 years later, the FBI has
Finally, it's
decided.
like, okay.
So many people probably like Velcro, just like slip-on shoes now. They couldn't like tie their shoe, just like
Oh.
they couldn't tie a tie.
Totally.
I
'cause
see
they don't
ads all the
dress up anymore.
time for shoes for going on a plane so you could slip them on and off easy.
Oh yeah, I always go wear slip-ons for flying. For sure.
Yeah. Not anymore.
Yeah, you don't have to now.
Our
You can-
long national nightmare is over.
Back
yeah.
to hiking boots. I'm delighted.
We have other problems.
Lace them up. Lace them up.
Flying or otherwise. Okay, so blah blah blah. Let's see, Canary, nothing there. And then so this one was actually interesting to me. This is one of those recurring theme things. Microsoft Edge, a Yeah, controversial browser.
No, come on.
There's been some good work going on there. And a big chunk of it has been a series of improvements to the user interface of the application, not necessarily like the rendering or any of the other things you might associate with performance, although there has been some of that too, to get these components all to run faster. So they've come up with this new way of creating a responsive user interface. It's not like, I think in the past, it was basically this web technology like React or whatever, which can be slow, obviously. And every 3-4 months they come up with a little update. And right now what they're saying is that they've reduced load times by an average of 40% across 13 browser features. It's something you can see if you click on a UI element and it just kind of pops on, like it's real, like it's actually pretty good. And that kind of an improvement is really huge for users, because even if you don't explicitly acknowledge it, it's happening, and you do know what's happening, and it feels fast, right? It's good, like it's real. And apparently there's a way to measure this. This is unbelievable, but it's called first contentful paint, meaning you bring up the browser, it's going to draw whatever the thing is in the tab that's open. If you can get that thing to happen below 300 milliseconds, the user is happy.
Right.
Like they actually recognize
these are the magic numbers.
Yep. Yeah. And the latest version of Microsoft Edge is the first browser to achieve that score. They have an FCP score below 300 milliseconds. So we're going to talk more about Edge later, but I will say it doesn't completely obviate the problems with the browser, but as it turns out, you can almost completely obviate the problems with the browser. And there are good reasons to use Edge, and we'll talk about that later. One of them is, like you're mental. No, I'm kidding. But that's good, and that's Windows specific. I mean, obviously, Edge is cross-platform, and I'm sure there are improvements elsewhere as well. But you're going to see the best results on Windows because, Microsoft.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's their rendering engine.
Yep. All right.
Optimizing Chromium.
Yeah. Microsoft Teams, everyone's favorite app, until they use Slack, and then they realize the grass is really greener.
Nobody loves Teams. Nobody loves Teams.
Nobody loves Teams. Nobody loves Slack either. It's okay. It's fine. Yeah. They're both terrible. I like apps where you get notifications and they don't clear in other instances of the app, maybe on mobile or another PC. I love that. I love it so much. I love having to manually open an app on my phone to get rid of the little dot, even though I've already handled the conversation in question on some other device. I love it. And I would say Teams and Slack are equally awesome in that regard. Teams is inarguably one of the most full-featured apps Microsoft has ever made. It matured at such an incredible rate, plus or minus a year or two of the pandemic. It was the singular focus of Microsoft 365. Really good job. So good they got in antitrust trouble. But somehow they didn't do a threaded view in the channel.
They've been talking about this for forever.
I know. This has to have been on the original list of features we need. It has to have been.
On the first bit, and out of the first build, it's like, we'll get to threading.
They consolidated the consumer and work clients of this app before they did this. That's incredible.
Yeah.
But they just did it. So there's one less thing to complain about, I guess, unless you don't like threaded view.
No, they're going to be very angry with threading. It's inevitable. You can never do threading right. That's impossible.
Right. I mean, it's not multi-threaded.
Yeah.
Okay. So that happened.
I said I wanted threading. I didn't want this.
Yeah. There was a big Samsung event today. So they have those unpacked events, I think, twice a year. This was the one for the folding device thing and things. There are multiple versions. I sort of drifted off when the price tag of $2,000+ for the bigger the folding phones. I know, for a phone that folds came up. But there are a bunch of Google AI features. This is something they've been doing over the past couple of years with Samsung. So a year ago, January, this past January, a year ago, August, and then now, there's been these features that, because Samsung always has the highest end processors, et cetera, and they have this big partnership. A lot of on-device AI stuff. It's maybe semi-worth looking at, but tied to this, Google announced a surprise Pixel drop. So if you're a Pixel user, you may know that you
Your
get
device is
a
now obsolete.
Pixel drop, every quarter, right? And there's usually like dozens of new features across, phones, tablets, watches, Android Auto, whatever it is, Pixel, I guess, Pixel features. And in addition to Android features, right, which also Android also gets new features, I think, on a quarterly basis. The last one of those was in June, but they had a surprise one today. And the reason they did that was because these things are also coming to Samsung devices, right? And they didn't want, their fans to be like, what about us? So they just released an extra Pixel drop. Used to be called a Pixel feature drop. They're all AI related, and they're all actually really useful. So
only for Pro and Pro XL.
What's that?
It's only for Pro and Pro XL.
Well, each of the features it depends on the feature, right? So the first feature, which is Veo, whatever, 3, the video generation model, used to be something that was tied to their high-end $200 a month, researcher type SKU. But about a week ago, they made it available to anyone who's paying the $20 a month, whatever. They keep changing the name, but I think it's just Google AI Pro. I think it's, you get 2 terabytes of storage and you get all the Gemini stuff, right? So you actually get that capability. This one, you do have to have a Pro level device. So Pro XL, probably Pro. Oh, what's happening? Oh, this is the video. So
This is the video. Yeah,
it is amazing. Like, it is amazing. And
this is all AI
is
generated,
particularly good. Yeah, no, it's really good.
Yeah.
So this is honestly not really tied specifically to Pixel, and you do need that subscription. But if you did buy a 9, you got this subscription for free for a year, so you can play with this. So that's
wow, that monkey's good.
He's better than the organ grinder guys here, ironically.
Maybe they should get
exactly.
a Pixel.
Yep.
I love they put Gemini into every
where they can. Yeah. It is really good.
This is a now in India announcement, huh?
So there's also, Google has what's it called? Not click to do. It's called circle to search, right? And this was like one of those ideas is like, okay, so we have a phone, it's a touch device, it could be a tablet too, but we want to be able to search that thing that's on screen. So this is basic image recognition, and then you go from there to text recognition to AI. And so they came up with this thing called circle to search, which, if I remember correctly, might have actually debuted first on a Samsung device, but it doesn't matter. It's across the board now in Android and Pixel, et cetera. So that's been, updated here and there over time. If you live in the US or India and you have a Pixel device, you actually get AI mode integration now with circle to search. So the idea is you circle something, it tells you, Gemini will tell you what it thinks it is, right? It can often be very accurate, but now you can do the point of AI mode is now you're in that conversation mode. So you can ask it follow-up questions and keep going, learn more about that topic, whatever it might be. And if you're playing a game, this is actually pretty useful too. This is on Windows, they have a feature that's part of Game Bar now. That is a mini version of the Microsoft Edge browser that will, depending on the game, recognize the game you're playing. And then when you bring up the game bar, you get this list of hints for the game. And if it's really well supported, it will know where you are in the game and say, for this part, the way you get by that thing you're having trouble with is this. And then eventually they're going to do the thing where it's kind of talking to you as you go, and it will help you as you play. And that's how it's evolving there. The way that Google is addressing this sort of need on Android is you're playing a game on your phone. And, same thing will happen. You're like, oh, I'm really stuck here. I got to, pause, go over to the browser, Google it. How do I get by this? Oh, yeah, okay. And then go back. You go back and forth. But the way that circle to search works is that it happens on whatever screen you're looking at. So now it works in games, and it will see that you're playing a game and see where you are in the game. And it's just a slide up view from the bottom that gives you that experience. Like instead of having to switch apps, you never leave the game. I mean, it is over the game, but you don't have to do that context switch.
It's just an overlay.
Actually, sounds like a good idea. Now, I couldn't see a game on a phone if my life depended on it, but I appreciate that other people can. So that's
not for us.
Not for us, yeah. And the third one I have some questions about, but they brought Gemini to Pixel Watch was the Pixel announcement, but actually they brought it to all Wear OS watches, which is why they announced it today, because it's part of the Samsung watch. Samsung probably is the best-selling, maybe Wear OS type watch. But if you have a Wear OS 4 Plus watch, it could be made by OnePlus, Oppo, Samsung, Xiaomi, you will get Gemini And that means when you say, hey, gee, I won't say that because I don't want to freak everyone's phone out or whatever, but it will come up on your watch. You could press the side, I think press and hold in the side button. Obviously, there's an app in there as well. And it lets you interact with Gemini through the watch. And of course, it interacts on the back end with Gmail, Google Calendar, et cetera, all the Google services. Okay. Is it running on your watch? I mean, just 2 seconds ago, we were talking about on device AI, and how kind of primitive it is, relatively speaking. And that, I think Google or Samsung, it doesn't really matter, but was the first to do this on a phone. Well, in the Android space, Apple has been doing this, with the Gemini Nano models. Microsoft's doing it with Copilot plus PC, obviously. They were doing it before with things like Windows Studio Effects, right? Was NPU feature, right, for in Windows, which only ran on a few different computers, but now runs on a bunch. But Gemini on a Pixel watch, what chip could this be running?
It's not running on there.
It is no way. So my assumption, they didn't explain this. I looked for this information. I didn't see it. It's going to be out there somewhere, but you must assume you have your phone in your pocket too, right? Like not always, but most times. Or I suppose if you have an LTE watch, it could just be on the cloud, right? Like maybe that is the point. I guess it's cloud-based. But it can't be running on the watch, is my point. But there is an app on your watch. So anyway, it's happening. It's something. Yeah, there's something on the watch. Yeah. Which is like, there's some, yeah, that's which is like,
no, we're getting very Dick Tracy now. You're going to talk to your wrist, right?
Yeah. Hey, this is a topic that's come up before, but like as soon as people started talking into those Bluetooth headset things, I don't even,
is it
with rare exceptions, I don't
immediately
go to this person is crazy anymore like I used to. Like people are always out there talking to themselves anywhere. It seems like they are, but they're talking to something else. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. On the toilet in the public washroom.
Exactly.
Yes.
I've had some interesting interactions with people talking to someone on a phone in the bathroom, but we'll save that for some other day.
Good for another.
Yes. One theme that's been pretty regular for me, at least this year, has been this concept of how web browsers are about to change dramatically because of AI. With Arc. Yeah, and Arc was a big part of it, obviously, and a big part of that discussion, a big part of the reason for that discussion.
The first time you show me a new browser, we're like, this is different.
Right. And then if you look at Dia, you're like, oh, this is different too. Opera is doing this with their Neon browser. Google, Microsoft are taking more of a kind of a conservative approach, but we're going to, AI is going to be everywhere. I mean, we all know this, but it's going to fundamentally change the way we use these products. I mean, browsers are, I think, inarguably the most important app that we use, regardless of the device. I mean, it's a lot of people can do everything in the browser, really, which was the inspiration for the Arc stuff. But what that's going to look like is, still up in the air. It's still debatable. Perplexity today, and I haven't had a chance to look at this a lot because it just had 2 seconds before I started to, sign in for the show. I saw this. You can now try their browser called Comet. This is an AI browser.
Well, you can if you're a $200 a month Perplexity.
Okay, sorry. Okay, that's like I said. I have not.
You missed that little detail.
Okay,
I will do it as soon as they give it to the regular.
Yes.
I subscribe.
Which they'll do over time, right?
Yeah.
I got you. Okay, so all of these AI chatbot models, whatever, have this $200 a month tier now for some reason. I guess it's like
expensive.
People will spend that,
and people will pay.
We'll do it too.
Yeah.
This could be very interesting for a lot of reasons, but if you look at the little video they made, it looks a lot like the things that the browser company, which makes Arc and Dia and Opera and others have been talking about, which is it's a little hokey at first because it's kind of working with the UI as it is today, but you're basically seeing it run the websites to do the thing you want it to do and then coming back with whatever it is you asked for, right? And so that could be like filling out forms and like searching for different things or looking for the best price on a thing or whatever it might be, but it's doing it in the like in the window or whatever, and then it's over on the side. It's like, okay, here you go. And it's almost like a reasoning model, the way it will kind of sit there and churn text, but it's doing it with the content in the browser across services that it does not own or control. And like I said, I think this is going to change things a lot. Some of it will be that Copilot experience, which is such a great, side-by-side experience where maybe there's a long video and you just want to be like, okay, what's the point? Or what are the 10 most important points from this that he makes in this, demonstration or whatever? And okay, fine. But a lot of it is this kind of, I guess we call it agenic capability where it goes out and does these things for you. And I think I said this maybe a week or two ago, but browser, the very name browsing, literally browsing, we were just nostalgic for whatever NT, XP, whatever it was. And GeoCities and all the things that were common back then, you would browse through the limited selection of websites and you would literally browse. You would read and whatever. And I think we've all lost our attention spans, but AI is also teaching us not to do any work at all. And now you could just be like, look, I don't have time for this 6,000 word Thurrott article. Just tell, what is he saying? And it's like, as it turns out, you can condense it down to a single sentence. What a jerk. Here's the, right?
I got your rage right here.
Yeah. There's a lot of complaining, and then he just says this. Yeah. So, I mean, but or a video or whatever it is, right? I mean, and I think the fundamental change is going to be, well, there's a couple, but browsing as we think of it is going to kind of go away as the primary activity in a browser, right? It makes the name a little strange, but also maybe the browser itself eventually goes away because these things will essentially happen in the background. You might have a natural language conversation with whatever bots or agents or whatever you want to call them, and they just kind of do it for you, and they contact you later to let you know. And maybe in the beginning it's running a website, but maybe those websites evolve to address the back end service based model that this is, right?
You're heading towards the AR world, right? This is the interface for the browser. Just show me what I want to look at. Like,
right.
I just cat videos at all times.
I'm not sure I really want that much AI in my browser, to be honest.
I know it's a tough one. It's but this is like I have to remind myself of this. This is the argument that one would make against this is the same argument that someone would have made when they owned one of the first vehicles and they knew how to fix it, and then cars got good enough that you didn't have to be a mechanic, and they were like, oh, I still want to do it that way. Or we've moved from stick shifts to automatics. So no, I want to control there's always that resistance because you have built up incredible skills for the thing that it was, and I do this we all do it. This is not a criticism of anybody.
I agree. And I think that's a very real thing. But I think there's also a very real shitification of everything.
Yeah.
And I am not sure whether it's the former, what you just described, or the latter, what I just
Well, it's technology, so it's both. So
I feel like
literally,
it may just
it's
be
literally
putting
both.
crap in my browser for no good reason.
The first versions will be nice, and then they'll get progressively worse.
I'm a lifetime reader. I have a hard time reading long things now.
Yeah, that's true.
I read every day.
Yeah.
Every day. I read in the morning. I read during the day. I read before I go to bed every night. And I struggle with it. And a lot of it is just this kind of implicit training of content consumption that occurs when you have the entire world at your fingertips and get an answer in 2 seconds. So my fear is the Isaac Asimov Foundation trilogy. It's the future. We have all this incredible technology. There is no one who knows how it works, how to fix it. And if those things break, we are devolving back to cavemen. And that's the fear. It's I already am part of the problem. Like if society devolved, the apocalypse happened, whatever it was, you'd have to eat me because I don't have a skill that would be useful to anybody.
Grow your own food, Paul.
Right. I can't hammer 2 pieces of wood together. I can't fix a vehicle. I can't, grow food. I could be food, but that's like literally the only benefit I would bring to this story. Right. And I think we're all going to be like that eventually. Like we're just going to be like the Wall-E guys, like the fat
floating
things
around
on platters running,
chairs.
floating around, like here's the turkey dinner. No, that's the guy running the show.
Well, then the survivalists are probably right. They're out there chopping wood and storing water and building their own, beehives.
Sure. I mean, I don't have an answer. I think like everyone, I have worries, and I have I don't want biases. I don't know what to call them. This habits, the way I do things, whatever, it gets in the way. But I do look at things like this, and I think, okay, this is pretty good. It's like, why wouldn't you want to use something that could give you the best price on a flight, or or whatever? Like you could
if
talk
it really
yourself
does
into
that,
it.
and if it's not influenced by the airlines. They just nominated the CEO of an airline to be the chief of the FAA. Conflict of interest much? No.
Well, that's
This
like
is the problem, and
that's
I think
the thing we talked about, locking the keys in the vault.
Yeah, and the thing we're worried about with AI
Right.
is it is so expensive. It's inevitable
Yep.
that these results are going to start to be advertising driven.
Yeah.
And then they will
the counter
really
to
be
the FAA
shittified.
argument is you need an expert in that role, and somebody who's run an airline is an expert. The question is, where are the conflicts of interest?
I'm listening to a wonderful book that I highly recommend. Robert Caro, the guy who wrote The Power Broker and is writing the multi-volume history of LBJ, wrote a short book about his working style, his working habits, And one of the things he told about, one of the very first experiences he had as an investigative reporter, he was like an intern working the city desk on the weekend, and nobody was there. And an FAA representative called and said, "You better send somebody down here. There's nobody here right now, but I have some stuff I want you to look at." And he called her. He couldn't get anybody, so he went down himself.
Yeah.
And he went through all the papers, and he realized that the FAA was lobbying to take a large parcel of property in Long Island and make it an airport, not use it for what the locals wanted to do, which was to expand public education and to build a campus for the state, for the local university.
Right.
So
was this like a whistleblower type? He was
it was a
leaking it,
whistleblower because
yeah,
the smoking gun was in there was that all the executives of the big companies that were headquartered in Long Island wanted to land their executive jets close to the company.
right.
So they were lobbying. I don't know. They were influencing the FAA's decision. And that's just a small example.
This happens everywhere, and in big and small ways.
So you're really putting the fox in charge of the hen house.
I literally was looking to see what direction it was from where I'm sitting, but I'm not in Pennsylvania, so what I just did didn't make sense. But
well, from way up north,
from my seat like this in Pennsylvania, right over there is a field surrounded by trees that's unused, but it's perfectly manicured. And I've asked about this a bunch, and I finally found out it was because the executive of a nearby hospital lived in a mansion behind there, and he wanted a helicopter pad so he could fly back and forth to work and not have any traffic in an area that has no traffic.
In a nutshell.
So this guy would just fly a helicopter to work because he's rich, and
because he's rich and he doesn't
screw all the rest of you who don't want to hear that. Yeah.
So, but my point being, we're in late stage capitalism, and unfortunately, yes, you have these
like stage 4 cancer. Like
it is.
Like
it's very much like that. It's incurable.
Like
and it's metastasizing. But it's why
incurable.
you could have these great technological innovations,
right?
But they get shitified very quickly, but this is a genuine concern now in AI. Is that soon the results will be tainted by ad results, right?
Well, I mean, it is a fact that AI is evolving at a rate that we've never seen with technology.
Amazing.
So it is reasonable to assume that the enshittification of AI will also occur at a rate
you built it off. You built it off data on the internet, and the internet was built off the back of ads. So it's already in there.
That by itself, at least it would be an equal opportunity vendor. But then
they stumbled into that, right? It wasn't like someone had a plan. This is how we're going to monetize the
CEO
internet.
of Perplexity said exactly that.
I mean with the internet. Like, in other words, that happened,
and
then we're here. Right. And now he's like, that's what we're going to do again.
I just think that the influence of money and greed is pervasive at this point.
Yeah,
and it's
these AI
you can have great
companies
technological innovations, but they get tainted very quickly by greed.
Well, trying to make right now, none of those companies are making money.
Right.
Like they're on a burn rate here that's going to take them out if they don't find their way.
Yeah, it might not be greed; it might just be survival, right? Yeah.
Well,
I
really the two
feel
go
like
pretty hand in hand too. Like
this has triggered some insanity, though, right? I mean,
well, look at Grok.
The world's biggest companies are
what happened to
throwing
Grok
away
this week?
tens of billions of dollars a quarter to build infrastructure?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like,
Well,
what?
because they believe this is a disrupting moment. And
Yeah, there's
so
an
they
upside.
want to be in front of it.
Yeah, there's the same
Well,
reason
but
that they
this is
funded
wag the-
Uber for a
the
decade without any
wag
profit.
the dog stuff, right? They're making it a disruptive moment
Right.
because
Yeah,
now
no,
they're
it's
laying
it's
everybody
self-fulfilling.
off. You know? Yeah.
Well, some people, but not all of them. We only get so many chances to build a sovereign app, like the first app that people touch.
Yeah.
Maybe it was Outlook, maybe it's Slack. It's always a browser. It has been for a long time. Most people's first touch of a machine is to open a browser, and
then use
now
that to
they
install
want
Chrome.
they want their product to be your sovereign app. So you make a browser.
Right. And then this is just basic antitrust that has dated back to the beginning of two people bartering for something, where someone finally has enough power that they move from these win-win relationships where they're doing providing a service to just protectionism and protecting what they have, and then looking for other things they can dominate because now they have so much money they can afford just to buy their way into new markets. I think
the better mousetrap scenario is pretty small.
To temper what you're saying about this, I just want to point out that the Perplexity CEO says its browser, this one they announced today, will track everything users do online to sell hyper-personalized ads. This is from TechCrunch.
So I feel like this is not the way they would market it, but
he's the CEO.
But this is also TechCrunch taking that and making it the headline, right? Like
he says, this is the quote. That's kind of one of the other reasons we wanted to build a browser is we want to get data even outside the app to better understand you.
Yeah.
Because some of the prompts that people do in these AIs is purely work related. It's not like that's personal.
Yep.
On the other hand, what are the things you're buying? Which hotels are you going to? Which restaurants are you going to? What are you spending time browsing? Tells us so much more about you.
Look,
we plan to. This is the smoking gun.
You're too smart for this.
We plan to use all the context to build a better user profile, and maybe through our Discover feed we could show some ads there. Maybe.
So here's the thing. You're right. This is terrible. We just talked about why no one cares about what you just said. It's because we don't read anymore. We don't think. We've all given away everything so we can get to a location in the fastest way possible, Google Maps or whatever it is. Like when you tell people you shouldn't use Chrome because ... they're like, and then they just use Chrome. They don't care. We've already made this kind of implicit deal with the devil. So I have had people literally tell me when I've said to them, disable the feature in whatever the product is, Windows 11, Edge, Chrome, whatever, that is personalized advertising. And they say, well, if I'm going to see advertising, I'd rather see something that's relevant to me, which is dumb on two levels, because honestly, personalized advertising is ridiculous. It's actually not any better than actually regular advertising. It's still advertising. Like what? How about we don't see advertising? Would that be an acceptable outcome? But we're all just like, oh, whatever. I don't care. I don't have to pay for it. Everyone gives up their soul.
It's as if though your GPS said, the best route would be the one that goes by Arby's.
Right. If you would like,
so
we will order you food with your credit card,
the meats,
and it will be there waiting for you when you get there.
Exactly.
Yeah. This will add 3 minutes to your trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we're not too far from that.
That's exactly my point.
No, but listen, what you just said to any thinking person is ludicrous, should never happen. But someone out there is like, oh,
good idea.
Cool. Yeah. Right?
Why don't we do that?
Yeah. That's the
thing is, it's with AI, it's easy to kind of hide it. And we are getting more and more reliant on those little bullet points that the AI gives you. And so
no, we've lost the ability to read. We've lost the ability to think. And now we're not going to know when it's wrong. And we're just going to okay, whatever.
Yeah. Who do you think Aravind was talking to when he said that? Like, who was his intended audience?
It was actually this new daily news podcast, TBPN. It was an interview.
Right.
Oh,
and that's focused on the Valley. So arguably, he was really talking to Google. We're coming for your
maybe.
lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also talking
he was at this time
VCs
probably negotiating with Apple.
Right. Exactly. Like there's what he's showing is business model and why this is a viable.
Good point.
Whatever. I'm coming for Google's lunch.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he's not telling the truth.
No, right.
He's saying what he needs. CEOs say what they need
But,
to keep the stock price where it is and make as many opportunities for the company as possible.
The truth is another thing no one cares about anymore, apparently, right? Like, I mean, this is the whole world is nuts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is the ideal time for AI.
Yes.
Couldn't have happened at a better time. To a less
We're no
educated
longer
populace,
qualified.
it's perfect.
Let's take a little break. Come back and talk more about all this good stuff. We've got the Xbox segment just around the corner. Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell. Our show today brought to you by, I'm happy to say, Threat Locker. Love these guys. They do zero trust right. Now, why would you want to look at something like Threat Locker? Well, I don't need to tell you, ransomware is burning a fire through businesses worldwide. Phishing emails, infected downloads, malicious websites, even RDP exploits. Is there somehow, some way you could stop this? I don't want to be the next victim, you say. Well, ThreatLocker's Zero Trust platform is the answer. It takes and this is the key, proactive, deny by default approach. We're not talking like an antivirus where it's looking for virus signatures. No, it just says, unless you have explicitly authorized this person using this app, we're blocking it. ThreatLocker's platform takes a proactive deny by default approach that blocks every unauthorized action, which means it protects you from both known and completely unknown zero-day threats. And 0 days are the real threat nowadays. The Threat Locker is really important for companies that are mission critical, that can't afford to be hit by ransomware. I would submit that's everybody, but global enterprises like JetBlue, they use Threat Locker. Infrastructures like the Port of Vancouver, they use Threat Locker because Threat Locker shields them from zero-day exploits and supply chain attacks, and, by the way, providing complete audit trails for compliance, but also to know what's happening. Who was using that app at that time? ThreatLocker's innovative ring fencing technology, that's what they call it, isolates critical applications from weaponization. It literally stops ransomware cold. It also, and this is really important too, limits lateral movement within your network. People just can't wander in and wander around. ThreatLocker works in every industry. It supports Mac environments. It provides 24/7 US-based support. And it enables comprehensive visibility and control. Just ask Mark Tolson. Speaking of infrastructure, he's the IT director for the city of Champaign, Illinois. And you know that city governments are one of the prime targets of ransomware these days. So Mark's on the front line. He says, and this is a direct quote, ThreatLocker provides that extra key to block anomalies that nothing else can do. If bad actors got in and tried to execute something, I take comfort knowing ThreatLocker will stop that. Stop worrying about cyber threats. Get unprecedented protection quickly, easily, and cost-effectively with ThreatLocker. Visit threatlocker.com/twit to get a free 30-day trial and learn more about how ThreatLocker can help mitigate unknown threats and ensure compliance. That's threatlocker.com/twit. We thank him so much for supporting Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. That's all right. This is time to cheer up because there's no enshittification happening in gaming.
Gaming's going very well.
Maybe we should just go right to the back of the book.
No, you want the whiskey too soon. You have to earn your whiskey.
Now, look, guys, come on. It's been a tough year. I get it. But honestly, I don't think it's as bad as it seems. But we'll get to that. So we talked about the layoffs.
Famous last words, Paul.
Yeah. I said the same thing on the Titanic. That worked out okay.
It's not as bad as it seems.
I mean, we just scraped the thing. What could happen? It's
just a little hole. Just a little hole.
Yeah, I'm trying to be cognizant of the past here. But but I'm also trying to look at this like clear-headedly, in a clear-headed fashion or whatever. So there's still questions about the layoffs. I mean, frankly, there's been some contention over how many of them are gaming industry related, et cetera. I think one of the most compelling things I've seen is descriptions of studios / games that were canceled or, gotten rid of or whatever, where these guys had never delivered on what they were supposed to deliver, and were given more time to reach some quality bar, and given more time, and given more money, and never
Everybody's
did
behind
it.
schedule in game development.
And
It's like you're saying it's Duke Nukem 3D all over
nothing
again.
is Duke Nukem 3D.
well, actually,
Duke
I'm
Nukem 4
not
is
even
really
sure
good.
I'm not sure that's an extreme example anymore, but
No,
It was
Star
at the
Citizen
time.
would
Isn't
be a
that
Duke
funny?
Nukem.
absolutely
Yeah,
was at
yeah.
the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And listen, it completely
Half-Life 2 Part 3.
exceeded all our expectations when it arrived, so it was fine. Game was terrible. So there are going to be exceptions to what I just said. I could be completely wrong, more generally, but so far what I've seen is a lot of this stuff was, there's a kind of a shift that occurs at Xbox when Phil Spencer comes in. They've screwed up with Xbox One. They were trying to turn it into more of a general entertainment kind of a device. And they kind of just lost the thread a little bit. And looking at the market as it was, looking at their position versus Sony especially, but also Nintendo, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And so things have obviously changed. But, Phil Spencer's been involved in some of the more difficult decisions. Like they wanted Halo Infinite to ship at a certain point so it could be part of the new console generation. That thing was a steaming pile of garbage. And they had to be like, no, like, you're gonna take more time. And then there are examples of the opposite, like that. What was it called? Red, not Red Flag.
Dead Redemption?
Red. No, it was a terrible game. A couple of years ago, the vampire game. They just threw that thing out there, and it was garbage. That could have used another 6 months or a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the work that Xbox has been doing over the past decade has been looking at what the other companies in the market, Nintendo and Sony, were Redfall. Thank you, Kevin. Were successful with, and what are we doing wrong? And what they were doing wrong was they didn't have enough first-party games. Right. This is the big thing Sony and Nintendo have. They have these franchises, and they do really well, and they pretty much keep them on their own platforms. So they bought studios. And they bought a lot of studios, and then they bought really big studios, and now they're kind of the biggest game studio in the world, right? And they wanted quantity and quality, and I think they might have given too many of these small teams that are spread out all over the place. And God, like just Activision Blizzard by itself is like this nightmare of whatever studios everywhere. Who knows what these people are doing? But they, even before that, though, within Microsoft, there's so many of these things. I just think it's too much of it,
Yep.
And I think this is them. It's bad timing, and it's not maybe handled well. They're not being very transparent about it. But I think there's just a lot of, like, you've been working on this for 3 years. You were going to be a launch game, and now we're going on to the next gen. What are you doing? And it stinks to lose jobs.
The AI story plays into this too.
It absolutely does.
Right.
There is
But
no better
you're now
example.
seeing small teams starting to build extraordinary games using these new tools, and then you're turning around to your 300-person team that's 2 years behind and going, "What is next month's payroll again?"
Yeah, you've taken hundreds of people, hundreds of millions of dollars, and you've created nothing. And we could do that for less, basically. I mean, so yes, look, it's hard. I am not saying it's okay or anything like that. But and look, like I said, there will be exceptions. We don't really know the full story here, but that to me, this is a big part of it. So there were a lot of just a couple of quick things that came out of this from last week. I don't think we discussed last week. There was a guy who was a big Call of Duty leaker who just said full stop. Phil Spencer will retire as soon as they ship the next Xbox. And Frank Shaw, Chief Communication Officer of Microsoft, literally is like, "Yep, that's completely made up. That's not true. He's not retiring anytime soon." I mean, I guess of course he would say that, but it's fascinating to me that he said anything, to something like that. It was such a random kind of a weird blog thing. But Romero Games, which of course is John Romero and his wife, and John Romero being half of the team, well, half of the two John team, that was the core of the team for mid that made Doom and Quake, right? Was forced to lay off 100 employees when a company they did not name that was sponsoring a first-person shooter that was going to run on the Xbox said there was no more money coming. And I wonder who that company was. Right? So That's
John
an
also
interesting.
survived Daikatana, so like, this is not.
That's interesting because that's not owned by anybody. That's not part of Microsoft, right? That's an independent small company. So that's another thing with the industry. Like when you think of like any given Call of Duty game, there's whatever studio, really studios doing the different parts of the game, but there's all these outside contractor guys too that you don't really hear about. The Halliburtons, if you will, of the video game world, right? And like Romero Games apparently was one of them, at least in this instance, and that's not happening anymore. And then this is just kind of small, but there's a Warcraft mobile game called Warcraft Rumble Mobile, which they're not killing, but they're also not going to provide any more content for. So it's just going to sit there in stasis for the rest of the time, apparently. And that is part of Blizzard, which is part of Blizzard. Yeah,
which Microsoft acquired because they wanted to get into mobile.
Yep. And by the way, I wrote on the plane ride here a long article where I looked at Xbox because Microsoft, of course, is coming under a lot of fire from fans who are the most abused fans, I think, in tech in some ways. Like they've taken over as like the number one, like nothing is right and we hate everything and why can't it be the way it was? And I've made this case a lot. The console industry has never been the same thing for any amount of time. It's always changed. It's always changed. It's just like the rest of tech. And just simple examples. I've talked about this kind of stuff. Xbox, the original Xbox, it was basically a PC. There was one version. We were done. Xbox 360, that thing got constant updates. And I don't just mean like Red Ring of Death stuff. I mean 720p to 1080i to 1080p. Cost reduced, but more powerful versions of the console. Xbox One, same thing. Xbox One, S and X, 4K, Xbox One XS, was one of the most beautiful hardware devices Microsoft's ever made. Didn't sell too well, whatever. Sony and Microsoft both launched this generation with two consoles side by side. First time that's ever happened. And different tiers of performance or capabilities, at least, right? I think on the Sony side, it's just probably just.
But that was also a fallout of our hardware is getting so expensive now, and the potential cost of compute is so high, and that makes the game more expensive to make. So we'll do two consoles because if the lower one becomes more popular, then we can dial this back. And that's not what happened. The high end one did all the sales, relatively speaking.
Yeah,
because and demanding essentially utilize my 4K 88-inch screen for crying out loud, and it's part of what makes game development so costly.
Gaming is interesting on a lot of levels, but whatever that pie is, whatever the amount is, right? We all know it's like bigger than Hollywood movies, by revenue, et cetera, et cetera. The biggest chunk by far is casual games, and it's almost meaningless. It's like these kind of free games that maybe are ad supported or in-game purchase supported. And a lot of people play for 3 minutes, whether, waiting in line at shopping or whatever, it's just
everything
little
you can
things.
do to not be alone with your thought games.
Exactly. Which, by the way, I can sort of relate to at this point, but, as far as like people who I would say are kind of hardcore gamers or like actually really like to game, like this is the thing, right? Whereas, like my dad's generation, there was nothing like this. There were no adults that were dedicating huge amounts of their weeks of time to playing games of any kind. Like I know they didn't have video games.
Well, you've never been to the United States Open chess tournament, as I have.
So anyway, no, but not to the degree we see today. Like playing video games has become an established, it's a thing. There are esports that make money like professional sports do, like actual athletes running around doing things, right? I mean, it's a big deal.
They used to have bridge columns every day in the paper.
Yeah. Okay. but again, but to play a video game, you are dedicating a lot of time, and it kind of boggles my mind. Like consoles are kind of this niche market where they sit between like this truly casual people and then the hardcore PC gamer types who are like, I'm going to keep upgrading this, get the better graphics, I'm going to have the best experience, whatever. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of money. It's complex. There could be problems, yada, yada, yada. Console, boop, it comes on. It's, it's pretty good. And it's interesting because I feel like it's moving in both of those directions. The consoles are becoming, and this is part of the problem with Xbox for fans. They're like, what is this thing now? And it's like, it's everything. What do you mean? What's the difference? Like, if you have a phone that's an Xbox, you can play Xbox games there. If you have an Xbox console, obviously that's an Xbox. But if you have PlayStation, we have a lot of games over there now too. In fact, some of the best-selling PlayStation games this year have been made by Microsoft Studios, which is unbelievable. The next Xbox, if I'm correct, I believe is basically going to be a PC, which opens up the
last
opportunity.
one was also.
Well, but to the point where you could have not just 2 tiers, but any number of tiers, and possibly, again, I'm speculating, but this notion of in-place upgradability, that you have this box where you can pop out the graphics and pop in a new one and have a better experience on that same hardware. Look, that's change, and people don't like change, but it's always changed. I just described a very simple version of that, but I mean, it's always been changing. So I always, look, Xbox, Microsoft, they're not going to talk now. They're not going to talk. I could not go to them and say, hey, something's going on with Xbox. You want to talk about it? They'd be like, no, we don't. Because they want to talk about it when they can talk about it, when they have something to announce,
when they have something to sell.
So I went to the Xbox site and I was like, how do they present this to the world? Like, what is it? And they present it to the world as 3 things: Game Pass, number 1, games, okay, and hardware devices, right? And devices is not what it used to be. Devices used to be, here's our console. Now it's all kinds of things: Windows PCs, these handheld gaming things. We're on mobile now. If you look at that, there's a lot there, and there's going to be more, I think, in the future. And like, okay, that's kind of interesting. And I went through I wrote a really long article about this, but I went through the entire history of Microsoft's acquisitions under Phil Spencer. It is astonishing. Like, it's astonishing.
They rolled up the industry. Oh
my God. And they really, really, you could say whatever you want about this guy or this organization. You cannot say they didn't try. They really addressed this problem. But the fundamental sell job that Spencer did to get Xbox to stick around, because I think Nadella normally would have looked at this and been like, no, get rid of this thing, was make it make sense in this cloud computing world. Subscriptions, right? So they did Game Pass. And Game Pass was going to be like Netflix was in the early days. It was this bargain bin of videos nobody cared about that was an adjunct to the disc rental service, right? Netflix became interesting when they started doing their own content, and it was actually good, right? House of Cards, Narcos, et cetera, whatever. And so Microsoft was like, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put all of our games on Xbox Game Pass day one for free. Well, not for free. I mean, you're paying for it, but you don't have to buy the game. We will be the Netflix of video games. And honestly, when it was just Microsoft Studios, like, that was okay, right? There would be the occasional big game like a Halo. They owned Gears by this point, Gears of War, Flight Simulator, or Forza games, etc. But we're not going to put Call of Duty on there. That's crazy, right? I think the conflicting desire to be a player, which means you need all those studios, which means you do have Activision, Blizzard, and Call of Duty and the other games, and then this cloud model that Nadella loved, where we have subscriptions and people are paying every month, they don't work together. You can't put Call of Duty on Game Pass and get rid of the billions of dollars you make within 2 months when that game comes out and you can only buy it at retail.
Yeah.
Like, those things don't work.
But it's the Netflix model works because first the movie goes into theater release for a few years before it gets licensed over to Netflix. And, some stuff and some stuff doesn't. It gets made directly. But you're exactly right. Because you've been building games like they're blockbuster movies, now that we're trying to go to, I wouldn't compare it to Netflix, I'd compare it to Spotify. And you want to pay
these are tough
tiny amounts of money for the product.
The movie one is correct, is the most correct, if that makes sense. Because most people will watch a movie one time. Most movies make all of their money in the first 2 seconds. There's not this long tail anymore. Like it used to be, Star Wars would play all summer long. It would come back in the winter. It'd be like this thing, and it'd be amazing. But most movies, they just, whatever they make right up front, that's it. We're done. And then they shovel it everywhere else, whatever.
Yeah. And whatever residuals are made from there, close enough.
And that's what video games are. So the problem, like Netflix and Spotify and music services, video services, that are series based are things you can you pay per month, you binge. You could sit up all night and watch a whole season of a show if you wanted to, if you had the endurance or whatever, if you loved it enough. And then you move on to the next thing. And music is like that, like 100 million songs. There's an infinite number of playlists and combinations and music that sounds like other music that you like, and that's great. But most video game players, as it turns out, just play a couple of games. And even though I love Game Pass,
there's lots of people who hang on to music playlists for a long time too.
Yes, and then but you may like the idea of Game Pass, and when it was inexpensive enough and it was like this open opportunity, maybe I'll try some of these games that maybe were big a couple of years ago, back catalog games, whatever. Yeah, okay. But now that it's like, once they got Activision Blizzard, they were like, all right, we got to scale this back. We can't do day and date. We're going to get rid of the Xbox Game Pass. We're going to have this Game Pass quarter that doesn't offer that thing, so we don't screw that up. They basically insurnified it, right? I mean, like they didn't have a choice, and I feel like the price. Well, I feel
like
has
this spread. They're doing the cash flow spreadsheets a bit late, right?
That's the thing.
These are numbers you could have figured out.
Guys, you had a year and a half of antitrust time to run these numbers again and again and again. And at any point, someone could have raised their hand and said, this doesn't add up ever, right? Like there's no version of the future. Get to it. That person has to exist, but
it also speaks to why are you laying off in the gaming industry? Because games need to cost less.
Yeah, right. Because as it turns out, it is like movies. There are a couple of blockbusters. They do great. They do cost hundreds of $millions to make, but they make billions. It's fine. Yeah. But most of them do not. And once that time comes and goes, no one is going to go pick up. There's no version. I mean, someone will prove me wrong, but there is no version of a game came out 2 years ago. It's on Game Pass now, or Sony's, whatever that's called, PlayStation Plus or whatever. And all of a sudden, it's the biggest hit in the world.
Yeah.
Like it just, I'm sorry, but like that game doesn't exist. Asterisk, it probably does exist, but
yeah, it happens once in a while. But the bigger thing here is why we upped the price of making games thinking it would guarantee billion-dollar winners, and it didn't.
Yep.
Right? Like the two don't necessarily correlate. Every year we get an indie billion-dollar winner.
There's got to be a term for this. It's the smart people making stupid decision thing. But when COVID happened, there were certain things that just went gangbusters because of the situation. Video games was one of them.
Yeah.
There was a lot of overhiring.
Yeah.
Without any thought of the future. Like this will pass and those people will go back to work or whatever. They're not going to have 14 hours to play games every day. And they're not going to spend as much on video games, which, by the way, categorically is exactly what happened. And but it wasn't just games. I mean, tech companies, whatever, all kinds of companies, I'm sure, spent overhired, spent more money than they should have, and then scaled back really dramatically, and it's just chaos.
Yeah.
So
hopefully they're doing some market size analysis and so forth, just saying like you're making too many games to make money.
Yeah, that's a big chunk of it, and that speaks to the thing I talked about in the beginning, where we have all these studios out there, literally out there, all over the place, spread over the world, working on games. No one is actually releasing any games. Not no one literally, but and at some point, someone's like, "Hey, didn't we have this studio in Montreal doing something that we gave them $100 million or whatever? What are they doing?" And they're hanging out playing Call of Duty. I don't know what they're doing because apparently they didn't make the game. So there's that kind of correction occurring. I think Game Pass has literally peaked. I think we might, through the combination of like making the right decisions for the business, but they're contrary to each other, we might have gotten to a situation where the price of that thing is too expensive per month. Now at that price, people aren't just buying it. They're like, well, actually, I only play 2 games a year, so I'll spend $120 instead of.
You're quickly getting to the Netflix scenario where it's like, I've watched everything on Netflix. I'm going to stop this account for the next 6 months and see if new stuff comes up that makes it worthwhile.
Exactly. And it's a problem. It's a problem. So I think there's no doubt that this business can be profitable and successful. And Xbox fans do not like to hear this, but there's also no doubt that for that to happen, Microsoft can't make the hardware. They just don't make money on hardware.
They never
worked.
have. And the idea that they could convince third parties to make hardware in this scenario is awesome for them. I don't know.
I think it could be happy. I don't know. Awesome is a strong term, but it could be good for those companies too, because they're better at it. there will be more choice and competition. It'll be good for consumers, but
yeah, there's a
I
strong
think there are
argument here to
companies that
say
could do it.
Microsoft has not been able to figure this out, so do something else. Maybe it will figure out.
Yep. So if you get rid of the Xbox hardware as a cost center or whatever,
Everything's an Xbox.
And now you've got your PC maker partners, whoever making devices, portable desktop, like a console type devices, whatever they're PCs, really, right? You're licensing the OS to them. Maybe you're giving it away for free. Who cares? But now you have games. What implicit to everything as an Xbox is our games run everywhere, right? Which is the thing that drives Xbox people crazy. The most popular games that Microsoft owns sell on other consoles and devices, and they do really well there. Call of Duty is much bigger on PlayStation than it is on Xbox. So that they become a game publisher. And honestly, come on, this makes sense. It's Microsoft. They make software. They're good at this. They've proven to be pretty good at the subscription thing too, by the way, but we'll see. But I think once you remove that anchor, this business makes sense.
Yep.
And it's big, like really big.
I also think, and you're also admitting here, and they don't know for sure. So they are trying things because what has been happening isn't working. That's
right. So when I speculate about the future of Xbox, as we think of it now as a console, as a PC-like device, or literally as a PC, I part of built into that speculation is the thing you just said. It's the we'll see. Part of the we'll see is originally Microsoft was going to come out with their own Xbox branded handheld gaming device alongside third parties. They still want to do that and still maybe will, but now we're going to go to market first with an Asus device, and we're going to see how that does. And if this stuff does well enough where the third party devices are good enough and sell well enough that Microsoft doesn't have to make one, their consoles will disappear overnight. I mean, they can't do it immediately, but they can do it immediately in the future. They have to see. And if it works, maybe the next gen Xbox hardware, there were third parties and first parties. We'll see. I do think we're going to see Xbox branded hardware from Microsoft, right? As we would call it, a console again. But I also think that might be the end of it, right? But we'll see. Literally, we'll see, because it's going to be based on what happens then.
So I think they're trying. They're trying.
They are trying. That's the big thing. I think we lose sight of.
I would argue against some of the perceived cruelty in how they're doing this, but I also see they need to make change. In general, this year's layoffs have seemed especially cruel.
That's right. And the problem is, I feel like it's bad, but I also feel like we've had this conversation before, and that this conversation basically boils down to, okay, on some level, I agree that this had to happen. Could it happen all at once? Does it have to keep happening every 3 months? Does it have to happen in such ways that you've got a head of HR telling you to use ChatGPT to get in touch with your feelings because you just got laid off? Is there some version of this where you don't come off looking horrible? And this is the thing. I don't know. It's probably not specific to Microsoft, but this is the market I follow. So I don't understand it, and I wish it was handled better.
Yep.
But
I agree.
But I also see the rationale.
Yeah.
As far as I understand it, right? We don't have all the details.
Yeah, but I think you're also seeing this. This is part of what's happened inside of Microsoft as well as in gaming. There is a disruption happening in the market. We have gotten fairly inefficient, and while there could have been a more elegant way to go about this, they are going about it.
This is not in this article, and I have ideas for what might be the next one that might be like a follow-up to this. And one of the little germs of an idea, anyone could go do this. You could just do this right now. Go find the list of 18 or 20, whatever number of companies that Microsoft acquired in the gaming industry that make games. Like, because there are other gaming companies they hired that are like technology. They make technology like Havoc or things that they don't make games, but they game related. But if you just look at game publishers, there's an interesting list to be made of here is why they bought them. This company, this publisher, whatever it is, this game studio made this game or this couple of games that were awesome and sold awesome. And then Microsoft bought them. And the next game they made didn't do so good. And the next game they made was terrible. Or maybe they never even made it. There's at least 2 instances I saw where they bought these companies for billions.
Yeah.
And they made nothing.
Well,
And
and very likely the key people to making great games inside of that company got paid heavily in the
and
acquisition.
then of course they're yes, right.
Even if
right.
they didn't
There's
move
another
on,
weird problem there, right?
yeah,
You're
they
so
were
successful.
buying houses and
Yeah.
you
Yep.
just just like IPOing a company today is really just a cash out.
Right.
You wreck companies when you acquire them and throw that much money into leadership, or pull them into Microsoft themselves and put them on different jobs. But either way,
Yeah.
the state that they were in that made those great games no longer exists.
The two biggest takeaways that I got to going and looking at this, because I'm aware of it, obviously, but you kind of forget the extent of it,
Mm-hmm.
is it's astonishing how many companies they bought.
Yeah.
So when people tell me like,
There's
they're not even trying gaming, it's like, I don't think you understand.
No,
what
they
you're
tried
talking
really
about.
hard. There's another
Yeah.
element to this. Like I had a buddy who built a company that made a great game, who then got acquired by Electronic Arts, did his 2-year vest, and in that 2 years made nothing meaningful, then left, started another company,
And then
made
suddenly
another great
nailed it.
game,
Yeah,
and got
yeah.
acquired again.
Okay,
One of the points he, back then he was talking about, I can't make what I want when I work for a big company. I have to be on my own.
Which, right, speaks to, there's a couple of things we talked about that hit on this. This is the Microsoft can't make money making hardware, but maybe these other companies can.
Yes.
And also this notion that maybe Xbox, generally speaking, would be better off as a smaller company, meaning as itself,
Yeah.
as what I would call Activision Blizzard, without the baggage of Microsoft and having to conform to the bigger corporate strategies that Nadella wants or whatever. I don't know. But yes, so that, I'm sorry, I'm trying, I said earlier, there were two big takeaways. One is how much Microsoft has just spent and how much effort, and you don't see it. It's weird because the narrative is so negative, but my God, they've tried everything. Like it's actually rather incredible. They've given up in the broader consumer market to a much greater degree. They have never stopped trying with games. Like it's kind of, at least under Phil Spencer, right? It's kind of amazing. And then I forgot the other one. I'm sorry. But I get distracted very easily. But I don't remember. It will come to me at 3:00 in the morning. Anyway, so there's that. I guess I'm just trying to say, it's easy to be negative. It's easy to be cynical. A lot of these people are very sensitive as fans. They're just take everything very personally. They're not willing to understand that for the thing they love to succeed and persist, it has to change. There's a lot that goes into that. But when I look at Xbox, if you can get past, the terribleness of what's happening at this moment, honestly, I think they've done what they can do. I don't know. I don't think you can go back and say, if they had just done this then, everything would have been okay.
No, I think you're exactly right. And they are, sure, they've dropped the ball on a couple of places. Like there is also the problem of working at scale.
Yeah.
But it also, there's the other element of this is you don't know what makes a great game. Because if we did know, we'd be more consistent on it, right? Like in some ways, this is the old programming model where we can afford to make 100 crappy games because then the one winner just makes so much money.
Yeah. I mean, that could work. But I think the cost of games factors into why that becomes a little more untenable these days, because now the vast sums you have to throw at a problem become a big problem when you don't hit that one game. When all you did was release 100.
Turns out nobody can make 100 games to get the one winner. Right?
That's right.
That's the reality. So you got to share it around. And then, and again, I'm not going to be flippant about these layoffs, but it's like any of those people could go and start a studio and work at small scale and possibly crank out a hit. And it's not like the market,
And it might be the type of thing that would not have ever happened under Microsoft because it is too big and
quite possibly
too many layers of management, bureaucracy.
This is how we used to talk about Electronic Arts. They cannot make games. They can only maintain franchises.
I know.
Right? They buy games. When you make a hit, EA writes you a big check. You come on board. They move your franchise in and make a bunch of versions of it till nobody cares anymore. Then they let it die.
I mean,
and they get the next one.
If you go back, aside from Donkey.Bass that was co-written by Bill Gates for PC-DOS 1.0, there might not be a single major example of an in-house created from scratch game from Microsoft ever. Like they distributed the game Adventure in the early days, for example. They did not create that. They, things like, Flight Simulator came from another company. Halo was Bungie, obviously. Gears of War they bought from whatever Cliff Bleszinski's Epic.
Well,
It was Epic, actually.
And you're coming at this angle now that this is part of the problem, right? Is that the big companies stuck too much money into gaming.
Yeah.
If I give you $200 million to build a game, by golly, you're going to spend it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
See, I don't know why anybody need anything more than this.
Yeah.
This is a perfect game in every way.
Yep.
This is donkey dot base.
There's nothing like 40 by 25 to just suit
I know.
the
It's
soul.
just, I love it.
What a game! Is this all? That's all that ever happens. Is
Yeah, it's the
This
whole
is the whole
thing.
game.
But again,
By the way,
at
the
the
donkey always
time, the fact that you get the PC in that era, the initial piece, there was nothing going on graphically. The fact that this is even possible it's actually, for the hardware, is actually sort of astonishing.
I'm sorry, I can't.
And basic, by the way, right? I mean,
Yeah.
It's donkey.bass for a reason.
Yep. That's crazy. Okay. Couple of more things real quick. So I just talked about this last week too. Now I feel stupid. Back in June, Microsoft announced and then released Call of Duty World War II, WW2, for Game Pass. They also put it in the Microsoft Store. Apparently, when they did that, they really screwed it up, because there was the version that if you're in Game Pass, I guess, you get the latest updates. It's fine. Everything's good. You're not going to have any problems. But if you actually just download it from the store, it's an out-of-date version that is suffering from amazing vulnerabilities that will be immediately exploited by hackers. And actually, Leo, it'd be worth watching the video of this, because it's in the article. It's at the top of the article, I think.
That's kind of amazing.
It's astonishing. Like, these guys are playing the game. Their computer is taken over by a hacker. They send them harassing messages through Notepad, which is hilarious, by the way. And, put gay porn on their desktop wallpaper. It's good stuff. Yeah, click where it says one gamer tweeted right in the middle.
Yeah, he did a screenshot on the tweet.
He did a video.
Here we go.
So you can see
ladies
the
and
command
gentlemen.
lines that come up. This
Here-
is Notepad with the threatening message will come up right here.
What?
And then he goes to his desktop, and fortunately, he's clipped it in such a way. It's
Oh my God.
yeah. Just all you had to do was play the game, and you were immediately exploited.
Nice.
So actually, this suggests to me that this game was in the same state as XP was when it was first released. The dumb thing is, this problem was patched years ago.
So
It's just that the version they put on the store does not have the patch.
Wow.
So they had to pull it. I believe as recently as a week ago, I was like, hey, this thing just came out. It's actually a really good game. You should try out the multiplayer. It's surprisingly good, which is what you're seeing here.
Now with free hackers.
Sorry about that.
is that a real hack, or
no, that happened.
is somebody just sitting there waiting for somebody to play this old game?
They took over his computer. Yeah,
Just
they
port
remote controlled his
sweeping,
computer.
right?
Yep. Yeah, it's an what do you call it? Remote code execution.
It's probably just some cron job running in a closet somewhere. How often is this?
I don't
game?
know. I don't know. I literally, I haven't played it yet because I downloaded this game today so I could experience this. I'm curious about this. Supposedly, if you don't have Game Pass, you won't see it in the store. So I didn't verify this, but when I see it, I still see it. So if I go into
So you paid
the
extra
Xbox
for the
app, I can
opportunity
get
to
it.
write an exploitable
Yeah, of course.
game.
I mean, it's important that I experience what real people experience.
It's funny. I just see this on Game Pass. I'm glad I didn't download it.
It's a good game. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
You get interrupted a lot.
So if you get it through Game Pass, you're okay. It's only
That's my understanding, because it is still there for me, or maybe they've already patched it. My understanding is it was only the standard downloaded version from the store that was problematic.
Wow.
The Game Pass version, I believe, is okay. It's still there, so it must be right.
Somebody's got some security pipeline problems for their store. How does this ever get pushed?
Yeah, and this is like I just spent 18 months bitching about them not putting Call of Duty games on Game Pass, and they finally do one, and then it does
carnage.
this, and it's like, yeah, you got what you asked for, idiot. Okay. They should have obviously put the right version. But,
Yeah.
okay.
You think?
Yeah.
I don't think this is the start of a trend, but it is notable that the first Sony published game PlayStation exclusive game, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
is now coming to the Xbox. Now, this gets into a kind of a weird area because it was made by a game studio called Arrowhead,
Mm-hmm.
published by Sony. So Sony does not own Arrowhead, but they did commission them to make this game exclusive to PlayStation. So I'm sure there was some money that changed hands, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But this will enable gamers who it's called Helldivers 2.
Yeah.
It's described as
Big hit.
it's incredibly it's one of the best reviewed and best-selling games last year, by the way.
New games in a while. Yeah.
Yep. Cooperative third-person multiplayer-only shooter, teams of 4, and it will work cross-platform. So you can. Sony does put games on PCs. This is one of them. So as of August, when this comes out on the Xbox, you'll be able to play in multiplayer matches like we do in Call of Duty, with people on PlayStations, PCs, Xboxes, whatever, mixed together. And that's good. Like this is the kind of thing Sony has often resisted.
This is the thing that Sony, wrote a brief on that would never happen. When
this is
Microsoft
exactly the thing.
Yeah.
That yes, yep.
Yeah, okay.
It is exactly that thing. Yeah, which is why I wrote about it and pointed it out, because this has never happened. And I don't know. I mean,
Send this to the FTC.
mhm.
Excellent.
Well, send it to Lisa Khan. I think we should just spam bomb her.
Lena Khan. Yeah.
Lena Khan, sorry.
She's
sorry,
not around anymore.
I refuse to acknowledge the word Lena as a name. Okay, so and then this is semi-related. So everyone is familiar with Epic baiting Apple and Google by putting their own in-app system into Fortnite. Both of them shutting Fortnite out of their respective app stores. Epic conveniently having a lawsuit ready to fly as soon as that happened.
Yep.
And then they cross-sue each other. Epic got kind of a mixed ruling, obviously, in Apple, although recently they've kind of rebounded because of Apple's stupidity. But they defeated Google handily, like it was brutal. And since then, and I want to say like 9 months later, whatever the time frame was, they actually sued Google and Samsung for colluding to put technology or features into Samsung's phones, right? Samsung being the biggest OEM or biggest hardware maker for Android, to do Google's bidding, but on Samsung's devices. So, like, in other words, it's like we lost in court, so now we'll get our biggest partner. And by the way, a lot of Samsung Google partnership stuff over the intervening year, hasn't there been? I'm sure that's unrelated, but anyway, they sued them for colluding, and specifically going against one of the requirements of their of the ruling against them, which is that for them to be blocked against partnering with another company to do exactly what what they're alleged to be doing. Today was the Samsung Unpacked event for the new folding phones, as they said. 2 days ago, Epic announced very briefly that they've settled with Samsung. Samsung, the quote that came from Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic, was, "We're grateful that Samsung will address Epic's concerns." And I believe there were two. One was this kind of auto block thing where by default, Samsung's devices are configured to block these like third-party stores like Epic has. And the other one, I don't remember the other one, but that was the big one. So we don't know. I was thinking we were going to hear something about this at this event today. Maybe even Tim Sweeney would come out on stage like he did at the I almost said Halo at the HoloLens event right back in 2019, I think it was, for HoloLens 2. One of Microsoft's sharpest critics all of a sudden like on stage like, "Oh, they're great now. Like, I get everything's fine. As long as they do what I want, they're great." So I don't believe that happened. I didn't watch the event. Like I said, $2,000. But we'll see what comes out of this. So I'm curious. Did not drop the lawsuit against Google for colluding. However, they still did do that allegedly, right? So, but interesting that they settled. So the case has been thrown out.
Simple.
Yep.
Hey, let's take a little break, and then I think the back of the book is lurking.
It approaches.
It approacheth.
Standing in the shadows.
It doth approach. While we break, I might want to just give a little plug to all the fine folks watching the show and the club today. Hello, club. Club Twit. We started this about 4 years ago during COVID when advertising was scarce, shall we say. And the club has really become I think, very big part of our revenue. 25% of our operating costs now are paid by our audience, which is ideal. I mean, I think that's what I would love to make it 100%. But here's the way that we do this. If you are a member of the club, $10 a month, $120 a year, there's a 2-week free trial. You don't get any ads. You have ad-free versions of all the shows. You wouldn't even hear this pitch, right? So that's one benefit. You also get access to the very fun Club Twit Discord. It's a great place to chat with our hosts, with other like-minded people, and a lot of special events that go on in the Burke. And go on. You also get access to Burke. A lot of events go on in the club. Coming up Friday, our photo time with Chris Marquardt. We'll be looking at your quirky photos this month. We also have, right after, our AI user group. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the vibe coding twit apps people did. And then one of the things I'd like to talk about is local models, but there's lots of things we could talk about. We do Home Theater Geeks for you in the club. It's a club-only show. Micah's Crafting Corner. iOS Today is in there. Hands-on Tech. Our book club's coming up in August. Really great book. This is How You Lose the Time War. All in all, I think the club is an extremely wonderful value. You cast your vote for the programming you hear on the network. You support it with your vote, your dollars, and you get some, I think, real benefits. If you're interested, and I hope you all are, please do me a favor. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit and sign up today. We'd love to have you in the club. I'll see you in the Club Twit Discord. Thank you in advance. Now, back to the show and to Paul and the back of the book, your tip of the week, Mr. Thurrott.
And mute.
I do this more. The more tired I am, the more often I forget. So, Tony Redman is the primary author, one of the co-authors of Office 365 for IT pros. We keep recommending this book.
The book that never ends.
Yeah, and this guy, I love Tony, but he's an inspiration to me on a different level because I also work on these stupid big books and try to make sense of this. And he's so nonchalant about it, and the way he does it, it's, I've talked to him at length now a couple of times about how I could do this better or whatever, but he has a good model, and this is the Bible for Office/Microsoft 365 admins. And the new edition is out. He's offering a $10 discount for Windows Weekly fans. The address to get, this is kind of a tough thing to say. Maybe we could throw it on screen somehow, but it's
I could put it on screen.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a long URL. We'll also put it in the show notes.
Yeah, okay. There you go.
But you look at that list of names, half those folks are run as radio guests.
It's
experts.
It's a who's who of everyone in that community, of note, that knows what they're talking about exactly. So it's neat. Yeah, unlike me, it's just me with a pole out in the ocean by myself. Anyway, it's a fantastic book and strongly recommended.
I am working at getting it into the captions as quickly as my little fingers can type.
Okay. I do this one with a heavy heart.
Oh, no.
But my app pick this week is Microsoft Edge.
Oh.
Hold on.
Paul?
What?
Hold on.
What?
Hold on.
Paul?
This is one of those I'm okay, you're okay kind of moments. So a week or two ago, I wrote about how I had come back from Mexico in May, I guess. A bunch of review laptops stacked up, configured them all kind of side by side at the same time. And then I got that horrible thing that happens to me where Microsoft auto-enables folder backup from OneDrive, even though I tell it no. And then suddenly I'm syncing my desktop and my documents. And I explained, I'm like, you know what? I in my knee-jerk brain, I feel like this is bad. I don't like it. I know I have reasons for this, but I don't really remember them because I just don't do it. Maybe I'll just live with this for a little while. So I did, and it was terrible, and I hated myself for it. And I do not. And I wrote we talked about it, and I wrote an article about it. But there's a little asterisk to this because a big part of that default experience in Windows 11 is tied to Microsoft Edge, right? The thing we talked about earlier with the DMA changes, where if you live in Europe, you can now or soon will be able to have the web browser experience you expect in Windows, where maybe you do choose Edge, but you don't want to use Bing, or you don't want to use whatever. You don't want to always use MSN, news thing on your tab or whatever it is. And you change that configuration and they never harass you again, right? Or you just don't want to use Edge. You want to use Chrome or something else, and you change the browser and it actually changes everything. And you click on a search link in Start, or you click on a story in Widgets, and it actually opens in your browser like normal. But that's not what Windows does in the rest of the world, right? So I was like, well, okay, is it possible to use Microsoft Edge in such a way that it doesn't violate your privacy all over the place and is a good experience? And the truth is, like, not just because of the stuff I mentioned earlier with the responsive stuff they're working on, but for all kinds of reasons. Like, Edge is actually, if you overlook the crap, is a really good browser, right? Like, it has all kinds of reasons to like it. I will say, from my perspective, when people talk about things like the best camera is the one you have in your pocket, the best app is the one you don't have to install. It's already there.
Right.
And like, it's there. It's the same engine as Chrome. It should just work everywhere. It should have this, it should just be the same, right? But it is Edge. And so, like, how do you fix these problems? And actually, you can pretty much fix, I would say, almost all the problems. Obviously, you have to install the right extensions to prevent it from tracking you. Privacy Badger, AdBlock Plus solved this problem nicely. The EFF has a website called Cover Your Tracks that will tell you whether you are protected from your own browser. Use it. Strongly recommend that. There's a settings that you should change, etc. There are things that Edge does when you first set it up. There are 3 choices you get. If you agree to any of those, they're bad, all of them. You can reverse that. Third-party password manager, that's something we've been talking about a lot. Search engine, change it. You can change it from Bing, which I don't think many people like, to whatever you want to use. It will harass you, though, right? It will literally, at some point, you'll reboot or something, or run Edge, or will run an update, and it will say, hey, you should use their desired configuration. We'll make Bing the default search. Everything will be great. And it will never stop doing that. It will never agree to you that you don't want that. It will just keep asking you. So there's a couple of things you can do to fix that. The easiest one is that thing I mentioned earlier. Get WinToys from the store. It's free. Enable the Digital Markets Act option. Reboot, and it will stop asking. At least for some period of time. There is some worry I have that it will.
Some update will come.
Eventually, right? So this is why I keep talking about the need for an app that I may write that monitors those things and says, "Hey, boop. Hey, they just changed that. Remember the thing you were looking at? Yeah, they changed it." I do want to know that, but whatever. It's something you can just re-enable. It will work. I would read the article. I would go through the article for all the stuff. If you do not want to use Edge, the browser configuration thing where you set your own default, the DMA thing I just mentioned. If you don't want to have it launch Edge when you click on like a story in Widgets, there's a tool called MS Edge Direct that you can get. That will prevent that kind of stuff, right? It will use your browser. You can just use that, right? So there are utilities. You can prevent Edge from running at startup. A lot of people probably don't know this, but Edge runs every time you boot Windows, unless you tell it not to, right? So you can disable that kind of thing. If you do live in EU or you do this Digital Markets Act option, you could uninstall it. Let's get rid of it. So you can do that. But honestly, I think if you take the steps to go through all the configuration changes, you have some of which, by the way, do not sync to new computers. Like, you have to kind of do it again as you move on to other computers. Yeah, I mean, I think this to me is less dicey than using a local account. And I think for this audience, a lot of people I don't see the problem with using a local account. Okay. Well, I don't think there's a problem using Edge, but you have to configure it correctly. And then you'll be okay.
Not the defaults.
Do not accept the default.
Does it store its settings in the registry, or is it a separate? You're really cool.
Well,
if there were just simply a reg edit kind of thing. You could
yes. So most features probably you could write a script that would just do those things. In fact, I guess you could apply them even at every boot. But the problem with Edge, which is the problem with Office, which is the problem with Windows, is that each of them has a settings sync capability that is so woefully underutilized and underdocumented that I'll just make something up. Like, let's say there are 100 features in Edge. It's probably closer to a million, but whatever it is. And you configure 5 of them. Half of those things will not sync. And there's no way to know. Like, you just have to try it and see what happens. So it will bring forward some of your settings. And this is true of Office and Windows, right? When you go to a different device, but not all of them. And this is the problem. It's a problem for me, especially because I use so many different computers. It's like, you almost need like a checklist to make sure you get them all, because, that's how they get you. You'll miss one and whatever. But, like I said, slightly uncomfortable about this, but the truth is, I've heard from, like, Richard uses Edge, right? You use Edge. So I've heard from enough smart people. I've heard from readers who are like, I use Edge. I mean, it's like, I hear you on the complaints, but I mean, Chrome is bad, and way more people use Chrome.
I just use a lot of different browsers. Depends on the machine.
I do, and by the way, I do too. But I have to say, like, I like it when something happens that's so right in Windows that you don't have to install something else. So, for example, like Clipchamp is so good for my needs for video editing. I don't even have to think about it.
Yeah,
I just use the thing that, like, there are some tools in Windows that are actually that good,
or at least good enough.
Yeah, I would say, all right, there you go. This one is, with the right configuration, is not problematic. Without the right configuration, extremely problematic. Like, no, it really is. Like, this is a nexus of the enshirtification that occurs in Windows 11. Like, it's a big chunk of it, which is why it's part of that DMA thing, because the regulators in the EU looked at this thing and said, no. Which is, any reasonable person would say the same thing. Windows 11, especially when they got rid of the default web browser interface in the original shipping version of Windows 11. Like, they've since brought it back, but it's still half. Like, if you say, I want this as my default browser, it will change 3 or 4 protocols and file types over to that new browser. But it doesn't change everything over, and it doesn't do anything about those deep OS links, like from search or widgets. So there are tools that help us get around that. And so, Leo asked, well, this is interesting. WinToys and the MS Edge.
There's a bunch of configuration settings in app data that are just
they're hitting the
register. The ones that are
that's how they do those things. There's also programmatic stuff in Windows 11 that's will help with AI later on, where you can programmatically change settings for things from an app, and that's actually really cool. Now, I don't know where Edge is in that world. I'm not sure how many or if any features are like that, but you could write a utility just for Edge that, well, people have, right? That, give you a list of, I don't want, like, they could be like a privacy section, just turn everything off so I don't get tracked and whatever. It's possible. I feel like I'm qualifying this a little too much. Everyone listening to the show is smart enough to do this and do it right. I would be nervous about my wife using Edge without, meaning a normal person. I mean, like my brother or, whoever, like some person that's just not technical, but is smart, but maybe doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes here. And they use dark patterns. The language suggests that this is the right thing for you to do. And it is, if you're at Microsoft,
And if you go to the EFF site for the eval, like you'll get there.
Yeah, look at what it looks like on like a default install of Edge. It's ugly. It doesn't quite laugh out loud, but it's like, ooh, oh, this is not good. It's like, you are not protected at all.
Yeah.
This thing is tracking you internally. Like, what are you doing? It's wide open. Like, Microsoft is, Google does the same thing.
It makes money.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I had one little addition.
Yeah, Amiga Forever.
Just real quick. Nostalgia-wise, Amiga Forever and C64 Forever are these software packages that have all the emulators for all those devices and built-in games and apps and the whole thing. It's frankly, it's kind of amazing. The latest versions have just come out. They're reasonably, if you love this kind of stuff, if you're nostalgic for this, definitely take a look at these things. They're kind of moving it toward like the mobile world, where they're starting to do touch controls and stuff. So if you're using it on a device that has touch. You can interact with these screens and stuff from the 1980s or whatever with your fingers, which is crazy. But I do have a deep affiliation with the Amiga, especially. But the Commodore 64 is my first, I'm going to call it real computer.
I thought of you when I saw this story. I thought, oh,
yeah,
Paul be
there's
interested in
still a
this.
part of me. It's like, oh, can I run an Amiga now? You know,
No.
or some Linux thing that looked like
No.
Amiga, or maybe, I don't know, maybe.
It's like running donkey.bass. Donkey
Who does that?
always wins.
I might go play a little donkey.bass after the show, but I don't know.
All right. Good job, Paul Thurrott. You are in the middle of the back of the book.
Yep.
And don't let it slam you on the keister on the way out, as they say.
Nice.
But we're going to get to whiskey and more in just a little bit. You're watching Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. We're so glad you are. All right, Richard, you're on Run as Radio.
Brought back Louisa Fries for this week. She writes an epic blog. It's absolutely worth your reading if you care about power apps and that whole space. She's got a little punk streak to her. She's very saucy in her writing. And one of the ones posts that she wrote, I just pinged her and said, we need to make this a show. And it was about growing power apps up, like making them into real software. Now, Power Apps is this tool inside of the Azure Wonderland that makes it easy for what they call makers, or just, not domain experts, to do automation and to ultimately can build some pretty cool apps. The problem is that they are a domain expert, so they're not programmers, so they focus. This is a very low code or no code situation you're working in. It makes for versatile software. It'll work on a phone, work on a tablet, work on a PC. Can tie back to SharePoint data and other state data sources, that kind of thing. And that's fine for you, but as soon as your coworkers are using it, or as soon as another team wants to take it on, there's some trouble. And this is where the administrators kind of have to jump in with some governance. And so Louisa sort of runs down this, okay, what do you got to do to actually turn this into an app that has a proper set of requirements and some documentation and a testing workflow and a deployment workflow and the security context set correctly and that kind of stuff. So it's just, all right, this is the checklist to go down to take a piece of software and take it on. And just to, we also talked about this from a celebratory point of view. It's like, congratulations, you wrote a piece of software with these tools that is now important to the organization, and now it needs to be cared for properly. So
there you go.
That was the key to the whole thing.
There you go.
Great conversation with Louisa, as usual.
Nice.
She's a ton of fun to chat with.
All right, kids, you know what's next. You've been waiting, you've been asking, you've been begging. Whoops. I don't know what happened there. Let me go back. Where was I? I was here. Oh, man. Something's installing. I thought this only happened on Windows. Oh, you know why? It's Parallels. It is Windows.
Look at that. It is Windows.
Look at that.
On Parallels.
Okay.
So
all
funny.
right. I get the picture. Yes, I see. Wait a minute. Now, sure, there are other podcasts about Microsoft you could listen to, but ask yourself this, baby. How many have the Brown Liquor segment? Presented by Sir Richard Campbell. That's right. There's only one. Windows Weekly.
This has become a thing, hasn't it?
Yes. I love it. Thank you, Joe.
I popped down. It was July 4th recently. Maybe you noticed. And it's fun for a Canadian to come down and experience the madness. It's July 4th, especially in a rural area. Because
where did you go?
Sounds like I went to Snohomish.
Snohomish.
Yeah. Snohomish is the county north of King County, where Seattle and Redmond and all those places are. And largely a rural area. And I was staying with a friend, and who's got a property amongst all the hobby and horse farms. And we were in the kind of area where they make their own fireworks.
Oh yeah.
So the explosions are pretty much continuous. Though for that day, go till the wee hours of the morning. They literally had to sedate their dog. It was that distressing. And it was an opportunity to drink some bourbon, and in fact, I did. And this is I was introduced to the Bolster Road Maple Rye Whiskey, which is made by J.P. Trodden, which is based in Snohomish. It's one of the new style distilleries. It was using the new tax code. A fellow by the name of Mark Neesham, who comes from the restaurant biz, decided he was ready for a new career in the early 2000s and set up J.P. Trodden in Woodinville. Back in 2010, he named it for his grandfather, J.P. Trodden, who was in the private mail delivery business back in the day. And in fact, these still exist today. The U.S. Postal Service had routes that you could contract out, typically these rural postal routes. And J.P. Trodden had what they call the star route. Star route is a general term for these rural postal routes where they have stars instead of the zip code. And an area known as Okanagan Hills, which is actually central northern Washington, crossing into British Columbia. And his grandfather worked in the 30s during Prohibition and was known on occasion to be over on the wet side, as they said, and then came back with
You guys
some things
didn't have Prohibition in Canada?
Nope. Only the Americans are crazy enough
man.
to do that. That's why just down the road from me is Smuggler's Cove,
Right.
and all these sorts of things.
It's a short smuggle.
Yeah. And so, apparently his grandfather, I don't know how much of the story is actually apocryphal. It's a good one. This is a very well-branded whiskey. You've got a very Washington State vibe to it. Today, those star routes are now known as highway contract routes. And interesting enough, very likely the road that J.P. Trodden went down was what they now call the 97 Highway. It's called the 97 Highway both in Washington State and in British Columbia, just to make it contiguous. And it does run through the wine region we call the Okanagan.
Okanagan.
Just a few, some evidence of the nature of the J.P. Trodden distillery. So Mark sets up this thing in 2010. He does not make any vodka or gin. He decides to only make bourbon. So clearly he had money, because it takes a few years before you actually get a bourbon. So he was he was basically working by himself for several years, but he did stick strictly with Washington products. So he bought corn and winter wheat from a particular farm in Quincy, Washington, and the mash bill is a 70-30 split of corn and winter wheat. He does a very slow maturation, so a long steeping period before they do the full mash, a 7-day long ferment. And he got an American still rather than going to the Scots. He had it built in Oregon. And I met that still because we went to the distillery. And it is a lambic still. It is a large lambic still. The lambic stills are the sort of traditional, like the Greeks had lambic stills. This is the way stuff like Armagnac and thing is made. So Mark had able to get a still made that he really liked in this lambic style, and he still runs it. And it's the only still he has. So to make a bourbon, he has to actually run it through twice, which is not that unusual. Just speaks to they don't make a lot. They're just not that fast in production. And of course, because it's bourbon, he ages it in American oak barrels. So, nobody pays much attention to a one-man band trying to make whiskey, but within 5 years, he wins double gold at the San Francisco World Spirits for a small batch, which is impressive. And at that point, of course, the sales just hockey stick upwards. He starts positioning his whiskey in a bunch of nice restaurants because he used to be in the restaurant business. He knows what he's doing. And by 2020, he needs a larger facility. So now he moves out of King County, which has very high taxes, into Snohomish, just to the north there, in a little town called Maltby, right by the big flour wholesaler is where it was. It's in a very industrial area. He's still using the same stills, but he's got a lot more processing and storage area, and also an awesome tasting room. And you can take a tour. And they have a membership program. It's $400 a year, but you get these special events. You get a certain number of free drinks. And my friend was there, so we tried everything. Of course you do. And he's kind of gone, see if you've recognized these names. So his base product, the one that won that small batch edition, which is at 45% alcohol, is now called the Black Label. And then he has that's a 3-year-old product. Then he has a 4-year-old product he now called the Red Label. And he also makes a 4-year-old product at cask strength called the Green Label. And then a 6-year called the Blue Label. And
I like these bottles. They look kind of old fashioned.
Very straightforward.
Yeah.
But the one we tried was the Maple Rye Whiskey, and it's different because it is only 50% of the small batch, the black label, and 50% of a rye whiskey made for the purpose.
Huh.
And then he combines the two together, and it spends a year in a maple syrup barrel. Which is bizarre, right? Because, listen, I'm from Canada, and Quebec has the maple syrup strategic reserve, and they definitely store they store several million pounds.
That it's a strategic.
Oh, it is very strategic. They also had a huge theft, right? People stole millions of dollars of the maple syrup. But those are metal drums they stored in. So the idea of storing in wood is weird because maple syrup is almost entirely sugar, although admittedly it's like 67% sugar, which is almost completely bacterial hostile. But you have to be careful with syrup. If it can go bad, you can have bacterial growth and stuff on it. But typically, this is sort of a hip thing with the chef crowd that they started aging bourbon in maple syrup barrels, and vice versa, aging maple syrup in bourbon barrels. And so this is what Mark got into with this bit of cross flavoring. The real question here is, we know with barrel aging and getting the flavors out of the wood, it's mostly about the alcohol, the solvent aspect. How the heck does this work with syrup? And the answer is that they heat the barrel a bit when they're storing maple syrup in it to get more maple syrup into the wood and to pick up more wood flavors into maple syrup. So he takes these maple syrup barrels and he puts his bourbon in it for a while, and they pull up a little bit of the flavors. And it's true. They can absolutely taste it. It's got a unique, slightly sweeter character, which you think you would have gotten from the corn, but it's got a real maple syrup flair to it. So a lovely whiskey, very drinkable. Definitely
Nice color, too. So it's not a bourbon, though, because it's rye?
It's nominally a bourbon because it's made in the bourbon style.
Yeah.
But it's not
all
because
corn.
of the change in aging. It's because of the change in aging, it would not nominally qualify. So that's why he's calling it a maple rye whiskey.
Hey, speaking of that, sorry, because this just came up last night. Go figure. This is probably shocking. I spend time in bars sometimes. Someone said that to qualify as a bourbon, it had to be made in Kentucky. And I was like, I don't think that.
No, that's the FDA regulations is anywhere in America.
Okay.
Oh,
but
so you couldn't make a bourbon in France.
No, but you can make a bourbon style whiskey.
Even if it's a French word, you can't make it in France.
Yeah.
I think that you probably have heard of this. It was called 1792, and it's well, the way I think it was just it's a bourbon, but it is made in Kentucky actually. But there's like a what do you call it? A butter washed version, that is surprisingly awesome. But
sometimes when they play like that, they violate the rules, right? There's been all kinds of tricks to avoid violating the rules, but Angel's Envy blew that up because once Lincoln Henderson said, "Listen, we're going to age in sherry casks, and you need to get over it," because Lincoln Henderson is like one of the godfathers of American bourbon. They went, "Okay, we'll change the rules." But does it really mean, why is Jack Daniel's not a bourbon? It's called a Tennessee whiskey, not because it's in Tennessee, but because they do a maple charcoal filtration step, which is against the rules.
Right.
That's the only.
Who makes those rules? The Bourbon Associates of America, or
Big Bourbon, Leo?
Big Bourbon.
No, you're not wrong. Typically, you go to the FDA, and this is true of all kinds of products. You go to the government regulators and say, "Hey, we want a standard," because other people are calling their stuff the same name as our stuff, and their stuff is awful. So this is, we talked about this when we were talking about Japanese whiskey, because it's only been in the past 15 so years that the Japanese have established a standard. And it's because when there was only Nikkei and Yamazaki, everything was fine. But now that there's another 30-something distilleries in Japan, they decided they needed a standard. And it tends to be written by the incumbents.
Yeah.
Because they kind of know what they're doing.
We know what bourbon is because we make it.
That's right. And so, the joke, of course, is that even the great bourbon makers are saying our rules are too strict and we should tinker with them a bit. So that's fine. The Scots do the same thing with barley only, but any kind of barrel, right? They go all over the map with barrels. The Irish go, put whatever you want in, like they're groovy. Just make it in Ireland. And the same thing's happening here with bourbon. So J.P. Troughton does definitely make a bourbon. They follow the traditional rules for their black label and the other color labels, very much like Green Spot or very much like Johnny Walker. They're using the same colors, which is funny. Their most expensive version is called blue. But this maple is off the side of that a little bit. at 45%. It's interesting. It couldn't get any details on exactly where he's getting his rye from. I wouldn't be surprised if it came from Alberta. Alberta Distillers, which she talked about last week, just because they're the guys who make 100% rye.
Yeah.
It's $60 a bottle. It is only sold directly. There's relatively few stores carry. Can't find it at Total Wine or anything like that. They will do delivery, but only to certain states that allow it. That includes Arizona and California, Idaho, Nevada, New Mexico, and Oregon.
I can assure you it does not include Pennsylvania.
No. It does not include Pennsylvania. And in Montana, only in Missoula for some reason.
That's amazing.
Okay. That's hysterical.
Yeah, it's very funny. Yeah. And oddly enough, going to be in Missoula in August. So there you go.
That's great.
But the other thing is, after they make the bourbon with those syrup barrels, they refill it with syrup and they sell that syrup.
Oh, bourbon maple syrup. Now we're talking.
Syrup. So it's like back and forth, barrels being used everywhere.
Yep.
Why waste a good
You
barrel?
have like a low buzz at breakfast. It's good.
Nice. They do make a note on the maple syrup to say there is no alcohol in this.
Yeah. I've seen bourbon aged maple syrup. I've seen all kinds of interesting maple syrup.
Yeah, people are playing around. Oddly enough, I noticed that the latest Whiskey Weekly that's gone up on the playlist is the one with the Hellier's Road Harmony No. 3, which was the barrel that made whiskey, then made beer, then went back and made whiskey again. Like this moving barrels around into different markets is becoming a popular thing, just to experiment, to try different approaches. And it's the same thing happening here. And so legit, this was a nice whiskey for a fair price. JD is still $20 and you can't go far wrong. But this is a much more boutique-y, small production kind of lot.
I like
cool
that,
bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Enjoyable. It was a winner.
I suppose it's not the case that boutique is always better than big, but I just like supporting the little guys,
Yeah. Well, and again, this is all that new tax rules making it more feasible. Like one of the things that Mark Neesham's going to be up against, and his son's working there now, is as demand goes up and they start producing more, they're going to start bumping into excise taxes and things like that. And I think there's going to be a threshold where it's like, it's fine when you're making about 100,000 liters a year, but if you want to go over that, suddenly you need to make 1 million liters a year. Like you've got to suddenly go big.
Yeah, this is a Sam Adams problem.
Mm-hmm. But, he's also big on, he's very particular about his barrel selections for given batches. And most of these batches are like 3 or 4 barrels. So he's only making 1,000 liters at a go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tiny little batch.
Yeah. But, he's made whiskey that you can drink neat. And that's an achievement for something that's only existed for 15 years. Right. And nominally in this current location for only 5. Like he's pulled it off. Well done. Impressive.
Lovely. Well, I'll tell you what. We've just done the whiskey segment. You know what that means. It's time to go have some. It's time to go drink some whiskey.
Well, the bottle I had did not make it out of July 4th, which happens. So
do not handle fireworks and whiskey at the same time.
No, I did not touch any fireworks that whole day. I was not qualified to supervise.
You have a designated exploder. I think that's probably the best thing.
And it's the teen. That household has teenage or 20-somethings in it.
The kids love to.
They're all very keen, and their fingers will regrow.
I hope they were. Oh boy, maybe wear a chainmail glove if you're gonna
blow things up.
And it was just all mortars all the time. Like it sounded like a war zone. Just boom, 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 and all the neighbors were like just the sheer number of explosions per minute. It was astonishing.
We had a few here in Petaluma where it is illegal, but that doesn't stop anybody.
Still happens.
Actually,
I would say it's the most American thing ever, but I've been to an NFL football game, and the opening of an NFL football game is the most American thing.
Jets flying over. And
I can tell you, you're very close to what is the most American thing ever, which is the border between Pennsylvania and New Jersey, where on one side is our state liquor store and fireworks, and on the other side is their pot store.
Yeah.
So
you get your choice.
One trip and you're good.
One trip, you got it all.
You're good.
Richard Campbell is at runnersradio.com. That's where you'll find the Runners Radio podcast. Also .NET Rocks with Carl Franklin. And he joins us every week to do this, and we're so glad he does. Paul Thurrott and I have been doing this show for some years now. Paul is at Thurrott.com. Even when he's in Mexico, he's at Thurrott.com.
Yeah.
Become a premium member if you want to get that Edge. I think that's a really nice piece you wrote about how to make Edge be clean. And that's a premium article, so make sure you
Less
join.
terrible.
Public service friend, truly.
No, I think it makes a lot of
help
sense.
the people.
Same thing on the Mac. You might as well use Safari. It's there. It's the browser you got, right?
You go
Anyway,
with the RB you have.
His books are at leanpub.com, including the Field Guide to Windows 11 and Windows Everywhere. And both Paul and Richard and I convene every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That would be 1800 UTC to do this show. You don't have to watch it live, but I wanted to mention that you can. If you are in the club, you can watch in the Club Twit Discord and chat along with us there. But it's the public can also watch live on 7 other channels, including YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, X.com, and Kick.com.
I'm going to go take a look at Kick.com. You've said that enough.
I know it because they sponsor a Formula One team. So I'm familiar with Kick. In fact,
I wasn't convinced until this moment that this was real, but there it is.
They got a podium last Sunday, so that was pretty exciting.
Wow.
Nico Hulkenberg's first after 230 some races. How horrible would that be to be, admittedly, you're one of the best drivers in the world because you're racing in Formula One, but you've never placed.
Right.
Yep.
And it's not his fault. He's never had great cars. And so,
No, you need that perfect combination, right? It's kind of impossible.
Great driver,
really.
great car. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know how I got into that. Oh, that's Kick. Yeah, that's why.
Sorry.
You don't have to watch us live, of course. That's only for the hardcore winners and dozers. All the rest of you can download a copy of the show from twit.tv/WW. There's a link there to a YouTube channel dedicated to the video from the show. That's a good way to share a clip with somebody who might be interested and help spread the word about Windows Weekly. You can also subscribe on your favorite podcast client, probably the easiest thing to do. That way you get it automatically the minute it's available. There's an audio version and a video version. Pick the format you want or both. And if that client happens to offer reviews, would you please leave us a good review and tell the world about Windows Weekly? It helps us quite a bit. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. A special thanks to our Club Twit members. We appreciate your support. And we will see you all right back here next Wednesday for Windows Weekly. Bye-bye. Thank you, sirs. I think we have to go with The Donkey Always Wins. That's our title.
Yep. Right.
I know it was a quick aside, but it was a good aside.
The donkey is a lie.
The donkey is a lie. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you.
Two more weeks in Mad Park and then Alaska Cruise, and I don't think I'm going to be on that one.
We know about Alaska cruises.
Me too.
I got a COVID on an Alaska cruise.
My wife too.
I did too, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
We all did, except
one.
for Richard. Somehow he's magically.
It's a weird coincidence. Yeah, my wife too.
It's the whiskey.
So strange.
Wait, Richard, you said you're not going to be on Windows Weekly 2 weeks?
I think it's the 30th will be the one.
He's going back to Alaska.
I just, the chances of having enough bandwidth are remote.
Yeah, no. Do it on a cruise. That's
the
crazy.
30th or the 23rd?
The 30th.
Okay, the 30th.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
we got
Kevin, if
two
you
more
want
weeks in
to
Mad
book
Park.
somebody, maybe Paul, maybe Brad would like to be on, or somebody.
Okay.
Might be kind of fun to have you and Brad.
Okay.
Kevin, why
have some
don't
fun
you
with it.
send out an email to Paul and remind him? And
I'll just have my wife on. She can just, every time I say something,
you know
she
what,
can be like,
Stephanie would be great.
She's like, that's the stupidest thing. I've
I
ever
would
heard
love
in my
it
life.
if Stephanie were on. I'll have
She's like,
Lisa
what are you
host
babbling
that
about?
show.
What do you talk so much? What
we
is wrong with you?
We could surround Paul. That would be fun.
This topic's stupid.
Thanks,
Leo
guys.
was been on the other side of that when I joined This Week in Tech, and the father and I were on the same side of a topic and just sort of tore into it. So
Yeah, that was good.
this
That was
happens.
good. By the way, we should have you both back on the Twit at some time soon.
anytime, friend.
Yeah.
That was so much fun.
It
and
is
the
really
father
fun.
is amazing.
Isn't he great?
I enjoy
love
him
him.
so much.
Yeah, I
I
love
love him.
him.
Such a great guy.
This week it's Amy Webb, which will be a lot of fun. She's a very smart person. Who else we have besides Amy? We decided to do another 3-person.
I think, was it Reed?
Sorry? Oh, Harper Reed. That's right.
Harper
Yeah.
Reed, yeah.
Oh, that'll be great.
There's
Mike
2 Reeds.
Masnick's coming up in just a few minutes for
I mean, you
Intelligent
ever going to have
Machines.
anyone famous or just? just
And Mike
it's pretty-
Elgin will be here.
pretty good. It's pretty good.
So that'll be fun. All right, guys. Thank you.
See ya.
See you next week.
See you.
I'm going to go full screen for this. Oh, thank you. This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 940, recorded on Wednesday, July 9th, 2025. The donkey always wins. It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell are here. We're going to talk about a big year for Windows 11 updates, and boy, there's a whole lot of new features we'll talk about. Plus, Windows 11 finally has more installs than Windows 10. Took it almost the entire lifespan of Windows 10 to do it. And a little Xbox gaming, a lot of Xbox gaming, including a warning about a version of Call of Duty from the store that you probably shouldn't download. All that and more coming up next on Windows Weekly. This week on Windows Weekly, Paul Thurrott says, hey, Microsoft Edge isn't such a bad browser. For more tech news all week long, tune in twit.tv. And if you like what you hear, I'd like to invite you to join the club. We have lots of benefits, and it's only $10 a month, and it really helps us out. If you're interested, find out more at twit.tv/club. Twit. Can't wait to meet you. For Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, I'm Leo Laporte. Thanks for listening.
Okay.
fullmoonshine.com/maple. All right, I am going to decamp, as they say, and get on over to the other side for Intelligent Machines. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
For those of you watching live, the stream will restart. So give us a minute and then refresh, and you should be in the Intelligent Machine. See you in a minute.